Velina mai kako. Welcome to Keep It Aloha, a podcast that keeps it aloha by choosing to go to church on Sundays instead of watching football all day. I'm your host Kamaka, and unfortunately, if that is the case, I do not keep it aloha on Sundays during football season. But our guest today does, and you can find him at church every Sunday preaching. But before we introduce him, I gotta remind you to check out our website at keepitaloha.com and our Patreon at patreon.com/kamakadias to get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to this podcast. We're an independent podcast, and all funds go to helping us run this podcast and bring you the best quality content every week. If supporting this podcast with money is not for you, but you still love listening to us, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps so much with the algorithm, and we totally appreciate it. Today, we have an awesome guest. Pastor Mike Kai is in the building. We had his nephew, Aaron Kai, early on this year, and we dive into religion, his life story, on a little bit of Hawaiian and Christianity, and just some amazing things. I didn't know a lot about his story growing up. This guy had like 20 jobs by the time he was already 21. So super incredible story. You're going to enjoy the episode. And, if you're looking for something and you're a little lost, and maybe, Pastor Mike will help you find something, whether that's religion or something else. So I hope you enjoy the episode just like I did. All right, let's introduce our guest. Support for this podcast comes from Texaco in Hawai'i, which features 58 convenient locations across the state. Fueling up at Texaco is fast and easy when you use the Texaco mobile app to pay at the pump. The Texaco mobile app is a contactless way to pay for fuel, so you can get in and out of the gas station quickly. Fuel your car and fuel yourself. Pick up your favorite local snacks and ice cold drinks at your neighborhood Texaco today. Texaco at Techron, driving performance. Our guest today is a pastor and entrepreneur from the Big Island of Hawaii. He is the senior pastor of Inspire Church in Honolulu, Hawaii, and the founder of the Inspire Network, the Inspire Collective, and Send Hope International. This husband and father of three is also an author, coach, revivalist, patriot, family man, public speaker, and host of the Pound for Pound Leader podcast. As an author, he has written 3 books called That Doesn't Happen, The Pound for Pound Principle, and Plateaus. He has traveled to speak at conferences and to congregations all over the world and conducts pastors and leaders roundtables, both nationally and internationally, with a passion to equip and empower others. I am so stoked to talk stories with him today. His name is Mike Kai. Aloha, Pastor Mike. Welcome to the Keep It Aloha podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Kamaka. Thank you so much for having me. What an honor and a privilege to be here.
I feel honored. I think this is the first time I've had an uncle and nephew combination on the podcast, because we had Aaron Kai, your nephew, earlier this year, and now we have you.
Well, I'm so proud of Aaron and all that he's doing, but also proud of you, this younger generation. You're just grabbing it, and I love this podcast. It's one of my favorites. I listen to it all the time.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I love watching it.
Well, now you're a guest, so you can watch yourself.
It's a dream come true, bro. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it was so cool when I first met you. I was invited to do a podcast at Inspire Church with Daniel, the Shaka Tank podcast, and you're a co-host on that. And I met you for the first time, and you invited me and my family to church that following Sunday, and it was so awesome. Seeing you speak was like watching the best public speaker I've ever seen.
Wow.
It was so entertaining. We were talking about that story about Moses that you shared for like weeks. I shared it on the podcast a couple of times.
Wow.
Yeah. Me and my girlfriend, we haven't been to church in a while. My family, they go church all the time, grew up going New Hope on the Big Island.
Yep.
So my dad and stepmom having to be here, and they went with us. So they were super stoked because they're fans of you.
Oh.
But yeah, we were talking about that the whole time. And even my girlfriend, she was like a little like, I haven't been to church in a while. What do I have to wear? Da, 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 da. Like kind of like, she didn't really, she wasn't stoked to go.
Right.
And then after that, she was just like, she was telling her parents about your service, like everything.
That's awesome.
It was that good.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I tell you what, when I met you, I felt like I already knew you because I've been watching your podcast the whole time. And the connection with Daniel, making that introduction was just just a great time. And so I'm grateful. Thank you so much.
Of course, yeah. Well, I just want to address the sling in the room because this is the first episode that I have my sling on. I got shoulder surgery to repair a torn rotator cuff and labrum, and had to shave out some bone spurs. I'm doing great. I just wear the sling for protection, but I already started physical therapy, and I'm good to go. So, if anything, I hope this thing gets more sympathy views. So, all right. But anyway, enough about me. Let's get into your life story.
Okay.
Where are you from? Where you grad? And what was it like growing up?
Oh, gosh. Okay, I'm from Hawai'i Island, born and raised, FBI from Big Island.
Yeah, let's go.
Very proud about that. Grew up in a small town, 2 small towns. Grew up mainly in Honoka'a, so I relate to Honoka'a. Plantation town. Lived in Pahala for 2 years. So while we lived in Pahala, my dad was a police officer in the beginning of his career. So in order for us to for him to get promoted, he had to move, which was not common back in those days. So he had to move from Honoka'a to Pahala, and we had to make brand new friends all over again. I remember my dad smoothing it over with all the other police officers and their sons, saying, hey, my sons are coming, my daughter. And so we lived there for Pahala. Pahala was sweet because it was as small town as it can get. Pahala, Ka'u. You go down to the store back in the day, Kamaka, you just write your name on a notepad on what you bought, and they bill your parents later on. So these 2 different stores, Ujiki, Mizuno Superette, we'd go down there, and I got scolded all the time from my mom because I'd always get ice cream, and I would just write down my name for ice cream.
See the bill.
35 cents. Come on, Mom, relax. But, when you got 4 kids back in the 70s and the 80s, that wasn't easy. So Mom was a stay-at-home mom in the beginning. We had 4 kids. I have an older brother, Keone. That's Aaron and Ian's dad. My youngest brother, Leonard, but we call him Len, or Lanny. He went to Kamehameha. He ended up leaving from his freshman year to go dorm. And then my youngest sister, she graduated from Honoka'a. I graduated from Honoka'a. I did not want to go to Kamehameha. My older brother went. He didn't like it. He loved it until 9th grade. And 9th grade, that dormitory action, pecking order. By then he was like, get me out of here. But Lanny went in his freshman year. He loved it. So growing up in rural Honoka'a, Dad was a police officer. We played every sport. It's one of the great things about a small school. You play every sport. So I played football, basketball, baseball. Dad was the baseball coach. And one time, he didn't get to coach me, but he coached older guys, the guys that graduated a lot before me. And I was a bat boy,
Nice.
and my dad was the man coaching, real community activists, JCs. He did that, Lions Club when he got older, always coaching, always giving back to the community, sharing his expertise. And then later on, our life changed in a very good way when Dad saw the ceiling that he wasn't going to make chief, that he wasn't going to even make captain. And my dad was just like standout high school, St. Joseph's High School.
Oh, St. Joe.
He went to St. Joe. Yeah. And back then, they had so many legends, athletes that went on. Like guys went on, like my uncle Al Souza went to St. Joseph, played for University of San Francisco, USF, baseball. My dad got drafted to play for, at that time, the Milwaukee Braves, not the Atlanta Braves.
Oh, wow.
They were called the Milwaukee Braves. And so he couldn't go because Mom was Hawai'i. And so he stayed back and became a police officer. It was Rookie of the Year. I made Policeman of the Year twice. So you would think that there'd be a little bit more upward mobility, but God has his own plans. And so there's a time where in Honoka'a, Kamaka, we were not known necessarily for sugar, but also for macadamia nuts. So before there was a Hawaiian host or a menehune, there was a Hawaiian holiday macadamia nut company. And so they were down in Haina, down at the field, all the way down at the bottom.
Is that the one with the long hill that people slide down on the...
Yeah. The long, and I mean, if you live in Haina, you're going to have to always get new brakes because you got to go all the way down. It's like a mile downhill from Honoka'a, right? On your way to Kukui Haile, go all the way down. And so Mom ended up working for Hawaiian Holiday. And the owners were Paul and Anita DiDomenico. And they came from money. They came from San Francisco. Their background, their family owned I think I said this at the collective, Ghirardelli chocolate and golden grain macaroni. So they buy Hawaiian Holiday. They turn it around. They do great work. They revamp Parker School. Okay, in fact they start Parker School. But they had money, man. I'm telling you what, the first time I ever seen like a fleet of Mercedes Benzes. Brown, she had a convertible one. Said her license plate was Mrs. Nut.
Wow.
His was Mr. Nut. And so they had an issue. They had an incident happen where they needed security after that. So my mom was working there. My dad was a sergeant, and they said, let's interview Johnny Kai. So they interviewed my dad. And when they interviewed him, they said, we're going to they made him an offer he couldn't refuse. They said, we'll send your kids to private school if they want to go. We're going to give you a company car. We had a phone in the car.
Oh,
nobody
this was in the
late 70s, bro.
70s? Wow.
Yeah, late 70s, like a phone in the car.
That's crazy.
And so as the chief of security, my dad had security guards, had a security detail. And so the Dominicos had a private plane. My dad hosted the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. I believe he hosted Anwar Sadat from Egypt when he was the president. Gave him tours. And that's where I met famous people like back in the day, Jim Nabors, Carol Burnett, Florence Henderson from the Brady Bunch. And we kind of, like, our world kind of opened up as kids. We're small town kids, but our world opened up, our eyes opened up. And mom and dad didn't buy brand new cars. They put the money in the vacations. So, back then, to go to Disneyland was kind of a big deal. Now we go every year, right? Back then it was harder. Well, I don't like Disneyland anymore. I love going to it, but I'm over it like in 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
Just
a lot of walking.
Yeah. I don't like the lines. I don't fast pass, whatever. But I remember that my mom and dad took us on 2 big vacations, and both of them were a month long. And
Wow.
Yeah. And they took all of June. And I remember that when we went, when you're driving as kids and your dad's driving a camper all the way from San Diego to Vancouver, British Columbia and back. You're seeing Yosemite. You're seeing San Francisco. The Golden Gate Bridge. You're going to Alcatraz. You're going to places that you probably would never go. And I think it opened up our minds to that there's more out there. There's more out there. So I enjoyed my upbringing. I was smaller. I was a little bit shorter. So I got a little bit picked on, a little bit. Mom, I should have been held back one year, born in December, but it actually worked out the way it's supposed to work out. So I loved it. Close with my brothers and sisters. In fact, my friends that I grew up with, I'm still friends with them today.
I love that.
A long time.
Small town friends.
Small town. We still do things together. We hiked Waimanu. I'll tell you about that.
I remember you shared that story.
Yeah.
That was so funny.
Yeah, it was the hardest thing I've ever done, in my adulthood. Yeah. But I loved it. Yeah. Small town, rural upbringing. Worked a lot of jobs. Tried babysitting. These kids were terrible. I had to call the parents, come pick up your kids. I'm not doing this. And they drove me home, and I was so bummed. I ended up mowing lawns. That's the next job. Because we had allowance, but not much, right? So my mom said, if you ever want anything else, you got to go work. Yeah. So I mowed grass. From mowing grass, I got a job pumping gasoline at the 76 station. And then I got hired to stock groceries at Kaneshiro store. And then one of my best jobs I ever had was working for a guy named Kenneth Kidani. And it's called Ken's Wholesale.
Wow.
And so you're in Honoka'a. It takes 1 hour to get to Hilo and 1 hour to get to Kona. And he gave me the company van, and he had me go to all the KTAs, all the small mom and pop stores, take orders, come back that afternoon, the next day, fill the orders, load up the van, like the big van, drive the van to Hilo, do the same thing for Kona, totally trusted me. And if I was going Kona on the way back, I always ask if I could go Hapuna. And he said, yeah, you can go Hapuna, but don't stay long. And I just go in, body surf, boogie board, come back up. And to this day, Ken Kidani probably was my best boss I ever had.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I go back to his house, knock on the door, gave him my book, said, I wanted to thank you. You've been like the best boss I ever had. Thank you so much.
That's so. And this is all when you're still in high school.
Yeah, this is before 17.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, kids, we got it easy these days.
Yeah. You got to make your own fun. Like
Yeah.
there's no iPads. We played. We kept busy. We got into trouble though. We got into a lot of mischief.
Yeah, I mean, as you would in a small town with not much to do.
Not much to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes sense with your whole background of sports and like all these other things, with the entrepreneurial background, you know, being close to that family that, you know, did the whole, Hawaiian holidays, is it?
Hawaiian holiday, macadamia nut.
And you know, you mentioned sports a lot when you do some of your talks. When we were at the Inspire Collective, you talked about Michael Jordan and how much you love him. So yeah,
I'm wearing his shoes today.
Yeah, I got the Jordans.
Yeah.
So it's all connecting for me now. That's so cool. So after you graduated, what did you end up doing?
Well, I ended up going to University of Hawaii, but I got accepted to Loyola Marymount, and I wanted to go really bad, but money was tight. My older brother was already at another college in the University of Pacific, and so my mom said, "Can you stay home?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll stay home, no problem." And I was just grateful, right? I get the opportunity to go to college. I was looking forward to getting out of the small town, though, no doubt about it. You know, you wanted to see what was out there. And so at 17, it was my freshman year at University of Hawaii. And bruh, let me tell you, culture shock. Culture shock. I didn't feel like I fit in. Everybody was wearing neon colors back then. Neon colors, neon slippers. Sarah's Surf and Shore. They was shopping at Town and Country. All of that, and I just felt like this country kid from the outside. And then everything changed when I started to make friends. I play basketball, so I play basketball all the time. I got into a lot of fights because we got that Big Island punchiness, and it's not something like it's not something that you're proud of, but it's that's the mentality, right? And so I'd always get into a scuffle, but I was feisty. And I started meeting great guys. I got into a lot of trouble my freshman year, but I didn't get caught getting into trouble. I just was doing the college thing.
Aladdin said, "You're only in trouble if you get caught."
Right. And so I had a good time, and some of my good friends. I joined the Air Force ROTC program. It was a dream of mine always to fly. So I joined the ROTC program. I ate it up. I loved it. And then school was not my thing, so to speak. Yeah, you got to go to class. And I didn't feel like, let me back that up. I didn't put in the work that I needed to put into it. I was just playing too much basketball. My goal was to either walk on the football team, because I saw guys could walk on, or walk on the basketball team.
What was your main sport when you were in Hilo or Big Island?
I would say my main sport was basketball. That was my love.
Okay.
That was my love. I mean, I played baseball. I didn't really love it, but I played 4 years. I got cut a couple times, but from basketball, because there's only 12 spots and everybody can jump.
Yeah.
Everybody's the same height, 5'7".
Yeah, everybody's playing center.
Yeah. Hey, you 5'10", you're in center. Yeah. That's the way it was on the Big Island, bro. Yeah. And but played football. I loved football. But then when I was at UH, I discovered a thing called Ladies' Night at Moose McGillicuddy's, and so I'd go there. And then, later on, I never really had a girlfriend in high school. I love girls.
Because you would have been dating your cousin if that was the case, yeah.
Yeah, right. But the pool, there wasn't a big pool, right? So small school, and everybody was taken. Everybody was taken. And so definitely we had very beautiful girls in our school, but everybody was taken. Everybody was steady. Everybody was going steady since their 8th grade year. You know what I'm talking about?
High school sweethearts.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so you move in, you're gonna get into a fight, so it's not worth it. And so when I get to UH by my sophomore year, I met a girl and I fell in love, and I remember during that time that it got pretty serious pretty quick. First time, real girlfriend, and then I started realizing after about a year or two into it that I'm really not becoming who I think I'm supposed to be. Like I'm not the man think I'm supposed to be. I'm becoming more possessive. I'm becoming a little bit angrier, And just about the time when I was ready to say, you know what, I think we need to break it off. Finally had the courage to do it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to break it off. Before that, I was like, no, don't break up with me. But then now I think we need to break it off. And then I find out that I'm going to be a father at 19. And today, you know that song by Kenny Chesney called "There Goes My Life." I don't know if you ever heard it.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
if I hear it,
Yeah, there goes my life. there goes my dreams. There goes my plans. And I owned up to the responsibility.
That's cool.
And became a father. Yeah.
And you were 19?
I was 19. Definitely, mom and dad were disappointed because, Mike, it's too early. You had all these dreams. You wanted to Air Force. You're gonna have to, and I thought, no, I could still make them come true. I can still do it, and I tried, but it couldn't. It was hard. Like I had to really go from 12 credits, leave school, keep one class going, moved up the next semester to, okay, I can do 3 classes, working part-time at Pizza Hut on Dole Street, working at Shell Gas on Waialae Avenue in Kaimuki, and nothing wrong with pumping gas and nothing wrong with making pizza. But I thought I'd be further along than this, and I was really frustrated. I was like, this is what my life is going to be. Because you can't see, you don't see what your life's going to be 5 years from now or 10 years from now. So I was very myopic. I was very short-sighted. And the responsibility now, man, you grow up fast when you become a dad. And I didn't want to be that guy that got his girlfriend Hawai'i. You know what I mean? But I also didn't want to be that guy that didn't raise that child. So my parents taught me well. I had this conviction inside that I needed to own up to the responsibility, and we made the best that we could out of it. It wasn't easy. It was hard. 2 very immature people. I remember I walked in with her to a store, and this lady goes, "Oh my gosh, kids raising kids." And when she said that, I felt kind of shame. Like, wow, you would even say that? Come on, you don't even know. Like, I felt shame, brah. And the other part of me was pretty upset. And but I knew that there was more. There's something more out there for me. And even though I can't finish school right now, I'm going to go hustle. I'm going to go work. And if it meant like moving from that job to that job, that restaurant, you made more tips at that restaurant, and I did that. So I'd go from Pizza Hut, let that one go. My friend said, hey, they're paying more at the spaghetti factory. So Old Spaghetti Factory, I'm a bus boy, and I'm getting tips as a bus boy, and I'm making more money. Another restaurant opens up called The Willows. The Willows was around for a long time. And said, hey, they're hiring busboys at the Willows. You might be able to make waiter. So I moved that. In the meantime, I get a job opens up. My uncle gets me a job at American Airlines. So I'm the youngest ramp worker at 19. So I'm working the ramp, throwing bags, loading bags, cleaning planes, work that job. Then I turn around. I go do the other job. And in the meantime, things between my daughter Courtney, okay, she was like probably about 2 by now, her and mom, and our relationship, it just doesn't go well. And at the end, basically, I'm trying to, juggle staying together and working multiple jobs to make one full-time job, and still try to keep whatever glimmer of hope alive that I'm not just going to be in this kind of place of, I would say, frustration and desperation all in one. You know what I mean? And when her mom left, then her mom decided she wanted to move on with her life. I got to keep my daughter. And, you know, I look back and it was probably the hardest time of my life.
I bet.
Yeah, I was depressed. I'd say I thought about taking my life. Um, it's a small town. You know what I mean? Honolulu's really not that big.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just gut-wrenching. It takes two, you know what I'm saying? Like, it takes two to tango. It takes two to make it work. It takes two to not make it work. And if I look back at myself back then, oh yeah, I was probably needed a lot of work, a lot of work. And I remember that I just remember going, there's got to be more. Is this my life? Is this it? I'm a single dad now,
Away from your family.
Well, by then, my mom and dad had moved up.
Oh, they moved here. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
It was one of the saving graces of mom and dad moving up was they helped me raise Courtney.
Amazing.
Yeah, and so they got a my dad's company, Hawaiian Holiday, kind of ended up eventually folding. Mm-hmm. But my dad was such an entrepreneur; he was already starting 2 or 3 businesses.
Wow.
And so, mom and dad would, they moved in with me. I had a house in Manoa, all the way in the back, which I loved because it rained a lot.
Mm-hmm. Just like Hilo.
Yeah, just like Hilo. Yeah. And I remember holding my daughter that one night. And, normally you pat your child on the back for them because they're crying. That night was so rough. I was crying. I had to pick her up. She started patting me on my back. And I'll always remember that. And then I remember that, that was tough. But, here I am today,
That's an incredible story. And just knowing all the things you went through and seeing where you are right now, it's so inspiring. When you're telling me that story, man, I feel like I almost get this claustrophobic feeling of just like, oh man, anxiety and like you feel trapped, like with all those things happening and like having to work multiple jobs, learn how to be an adult, a father, still a son, a brother, all those things, all those roles and titles that you held at that time.
Yeah.
While in this new environment of Honolulu, it just gives me that like I'm trapped and the ceiling is right at the tip of my head and there's nowhere to go. So just the fact that you were able to push through and get out of that, I'm just like, wow, I'm just blessed that I've never had to experience something like that. And like, I think you've probably had more jobs than most of us have in our entire lives,
Yeah.
So it's just, what a story.
Yeah. It was, I look back, it's bittersweet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was the bitterest, hardest time of my life. But if I look back, it really was the impetus of what I feel God would use. That out of that time of my life, of course, now at that point, I'm self-educating. Like, I got offered to. I remember one of the best dreams I had. I hardly talk about this, but I'm starting to talk about it just a little bit more. I remember one of the dreams that I had was, to play basketball. Walk on, and UH always had a walk on, walk on program for basketball. And while I was working at the Willows, and I remember showing up at Gym 2 upstairs, and I'd play there. I remember this one kid, Troy Bow. Troy Bow was from New York. He had to sit out his freshman year because of academics. And so we would play a lot head-to-head. And then by the time he made the team, I was just balling, hooping. And Bob Nash, the assistant coach from University of Hawaii at that time, was watching. And then he told me, pull me on the side. He said, hey, we got a new coach. His name is Riley Wallace. Frank Arnold left. We're letting a lot of the players go. We just need 5 local boys, just 5 guys. And I'm like, what? And you're asking me? He's like, yeah. Just 1 year. Walk on with no promises after that. Just see what you can do. And so I know the names of the guys that they all went. And I was super stoked about it. And then he says, you got to call Leon Shoemaker. He's the academic advisor, and we'll get you set up. I said, okay, great. You're a student, right? Yeah, I'm a student. I had 3 classes. Leon goes, Mike, you need 4. I said, I'll take one right now. He goes, you can't. It's already too late. And I remember like going, oh, oh, shucks. I had an opportunity. But then again, at the end of the day, basketball is not going to I was not going to be playing the NBA. It would just be something nice to do. It would be awesome to do.
Yeah.
So I'm stoked for my youngest daughter. She's playing college volleyball.
Collegiate volleyball.
Yeah. Becca played Chaminade.
Super cool.
But I remember that at that point, what really got me through it was, number one was my family. My support system was my family. So my mom and dad moved up, and then my younger brother, Len, he was at Kamehameha. So I would, he was a great basketball player, ILH Player of the Year, first team All-State, pick him up all the time, play hoops with him. Kind of had that support system. I had friends at work that were really close to me. Guys like Anini Yap, Ken Tuitele. We were super close. And then my friend Anini was the guy that got me to go to church. And before that, I did not want to go to church.
Did your family ever go to church?
We did. We were Catholics. So we went to church every Sunday. I'm grateful for that upbringing. I was an altar boy. But everything was a lot in my head. Like I can memorize everything, right? But it never really took root in my heart. I didn't. Now I know why. But back then I just was going through the motions. It was a religious thing, right? And then I remember when I was going through this, I was wondering, where is God? If I'm going through, do you see what I'm going through? And so when my friends started talking to me about going to church, I'm like, I don't want to go to church. And they would, come on, man, you got to go to church. They knew what I was going through. And in the meantime, though, I'm reading books. Like I'm self-educating because I can't go to college. I don't have time to go to school. No such thing as an online class. So I start ordering books, buying books that I think are going to help me. And my friends say, hey, read these books. So I started reading The Power of Positive Thinking because I needed to think more positive because my mind was just so...
spiraling.
Yeah, exactly, right? I was negative. I was thinking negative all the time. Woe is me. I'm a victim. All this stuff was going on. Started reading The Power of Positive Thinking. There's another book called Tough Times Never Last, But Tough People Do. Grab that off the shelf. No such thing as Amazon back then.
Yeah.
You got to go to a bookstore and you got to go buy it.
RIP Borders.
Yeah. And these books I started reading. I started almost devouring them. And it started to change the way that I was thinking. So it gave me hope that you're not going to be here forever. And then finally, my friend Anini goes, do you want to go to church? So he was on my case, though, because he would tell me, wow, you need Jesus. I said, you need Jesus, bro. Don't tell me I need Jesus. The last thing you want to tell somebody who that needs the Lord is you need Jesus. And so he kept telling me, wow, you need Jesus. I'm like, finally, he said, come on, I'll take you to church, man. I'll buy you breakfast. So he would bug me, and then I said that he bribed me because back then when you don't have a lot of money,
breakfast sounds good.
Breakfast sounds good. So we went to church that Sunday. Got overdressed. The church was in Kaneohe. It's called Hope Chapel. I did not know what to expect. It was in an elementary school, so I never knew of a school church meeting in a school back then.
I've been there before.
Yeah,
my auntie and uncle used to live in Kailua.
Yeah,
so
you went to Hope Chapel.
I've been there like one time.
Okay.
Yeah, because my dad's sister, they lived on that side. So I remember going there one time.
Yeah, so it was at Ben Parker at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember walking in, nervous. Don't know if I really want to be here. I'm doing it because Brandon said I should do it, Anini. And they took my daughter one direction. She started crying. They took me the other direction. I was all nervous. They put me in the second row. I was like, wow, who puts the new guy in the second row? And I remember watching the worship, the lyrics. And back then it was overhead projector. That's how long ago. There's no LED screens, overhead projector. And when and so to me, to drown my sorrows in that period of time, I'd go sing karaoke. Back in the day, they had this place called Kengo's, right down on Ala Moana where Target is today. Right, that whole place used to be all these bars. I'd go to Kengo's. I'd sing Unchained Melody. Somebody back then you had to pay the $1, open up the binder. Somebody would give me the $1. Hey, brother, sing this song. I'd sing that song. So I was really started getting into music, or at least singing. And when I went to church, I couldn't believe the lyrics.
Uh-huh.
The lyrics were, my mind is thinking Lionel Richie. I'm thinking, whatever, right? All these different artists. When I look at the worship words, they look like Lionel Richie love songs to God. I couldn't believe the lyrics, the words. Not A Mighty Fortress or, How Great Thou Art, which are great songs, great hymns, but these were like real. And they were speaking to me. And I remember like they had me at song 3. Because by then they sing, like back then was 5 songs. They had me on song 3. And I know what happened. I can talk about it today. I know what happened. But back then, what was happening was I felt like God was reading my mail. And the most powerful spiritual experience I ever had in my life was that moment. And I don't even know what the pastor said. Didn't even matter. Like, sign me up. I'm broken. I'm boss up. I've made mistakes. I know I need God. I know I need Jesus. Just like Anini said. And that day, 1989, at the age of 21, homicidal, suicidal, brokenhearted, angry, Michael Kai dedicated his life to the Lord.
And how old were you?
21.
21. Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like by all the experiences you shared, you're already 45.
I feel like I've lived a lot of lives. In fact, the crazy thing is, I felt old. I felt old for my age.
Well, you said you grow up fast,
Yeah. Like some things I couldn't relate. I couldn't relate to my friends. They're talking about rims, truck, lift them, drop it, whatever, right? And me, I'm like babysitting, how I'm going to pay my Auntie Miley, how I'm going to make all that happen.
Wow. So at 21, you dedicated your life to the Lord. And then from that point on, was it church every weekend, Bible, church groups, like all of that, like fully into it?
Slowly. What happened was, in the beginning, when I started going to church, I would go as often as I could. My job at American Airlines required that I would work Sundays. So I'd have to go to a Friday night if I could. And so church for sure, Sundays for sure, do whatever I can to get there. Bible study, I didn't have time. I'm working too many jobs. Sometimes my job at American would require me to show up at 4 a.m. and only work a 4-hour shift, get a nap in between, and then go work at the Willows. In the meantime, I'm selling mini huni water. I'm hustling.
Wow.
My learning was, a lot of it was done in my car. So I had an old Datsun B210 4-speed, okay? Barely gets up the Pali. I lived in Manoa to get to church, or Like. Barely gets up. So I always bought cassette tapes. So I popped a cassette tape of a motivational speaker or a Bible study. I actually was joking around. I named my car the University of Success, even though I cannot go to the University of Hawaii.
Yeah.
Everything was being self-taught at this point. I turned on the radio, Christian radio. I'd listen to all these different pastors and listen to their Bible studies while I'm driving. Minimum drive for me anywhere was 30 minutes, right? If I go to work. And I would learn that way. I was still kind of straddling the fence a little bit. I was straddling the fence, one foot doing my old thing, the other foot still in church. And I guess at that point I had to decide, about a year later, I'm either going all in or I'm not. I can't be lukewarm. I can't fool around with this, right? And so I decided that I would go all in. And all in meant that, one of the first things that I did was I stopped going out. I needed to stay home. I needed to come home, right? Because in the restaurant industry, you blowing off steam after a shift, right? You're going to have some with the boys, or you're going to go to another pizza place that stays open later. We go to a place called Mamma Mia's on University Avenue. And I started just going home. I should go home. Yeah, but your mom's got your daughter. She's sleeping. Yeah, she's good. No, I need to go home. And I go home and I started to slowly kind of separate, but not cut off, separate myself from the old life that I was living. And I could be around it, but I didn't have to be about it. You know what I mean? I could still be around it. I just don't have to be about it. And so it was hard, but it was necessary. And I did that. And then, in the meantime, I'm trying to work out things with my daughter's mom. And when the writing was finally on the wall, maybe three years later, that this was not going to happen, no matter how much I prayed for it. Oh God, I thought if I give my life to you, you're going to bring all this back to me. I get my family back. I get this back. It didn't necessarily happen.
Did that make you angry?
No. It made me wonder. But I wasn't angry. Because in the first place, I put myself here. Number one, my choices, my decision put me where I was. Number two, I knew that it takes two to make it work. So if I've gone all in on a life with Christ and she's wants nothing about it and is living that life and her YOLO, you know what I'm saying? Best life, everything, and I'm like here living this life. The writing was on the wall. It wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to happen. I could have made it work though, but it wasn't going to happen.
Are these things you reflected on later in life, or as you were in this position?
Well, in this position, I'm praying that it'll work.
Okay, but like all these things, like you were self-aware at 21, like knowing all these things that you're talking about right now. That's crazy. And a lot of people don't have that, especially like the victim card where it's just like, poor me, my life is hard. Like, no, this is my fault. Like, how many people take accountability at 21?
Yeah. I think probably because of what I was reading, more Bible for sure. Like I didn't understand the Bible. Like I never understood. Like I didn't know where to read. Where do you begin? And so I remember this one lady on working at the Willows. She just passed away yesterday. I met her for the first time. I'm 21 years old. I'm excited about my relationship with God. And so she's pulls up in this red Chrysler LeBaron. Now, back in the day, we put the nicest cars up front so we get the bigger tip, right? So if you get a $5 tip, right on. Like that was a good tip back then.
That's like $20 now or something.
Yeah, today is like $20, right? You give a good tip. Back then, it was like $1. We look at the dollar like, oh, okay, thanks. Close the door. And I remember that this lady comes in a Chrysler LeBaron, already thinking, oh, convertible, automatic front row. Me and my friends were all like running. We like running for cars, man. And she pulls up and she's got the Jesus fish sticker on the back of her car. And I say to her, I said, wow, you're a Christian. Because when you become one, you're excited about it,
like,
right?
You see other Christians.
Yeah,
like,
right.
You're a Christian.
Yeah. Oh, you believe in God too? Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And she goes, yes, I do. And she goes, tell me where you go to church. I said, I go to Hope Chapel. I'm writing her ticket. Hope. Oh, great Bible teaching church. I'm like, yeah. She goes, where are you reading at right now? I'm not really like, I don't know. I'm using the daily bread. And, she goes, I tell you what. She goes, most people have a hard time finding out where to read. So if you go to the Gospels, it's called Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Gospel means the good news. Read John. And then go back, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Read John. I go, why John? Because John was Jesus's best friend. I go, Jesus had a best friend? Like, yes, he did. His name was John, the Apostle John. So Peter, James, and John was this inner three. He had 12, but there's the inner three, and John was the closest. Read John. I'm like, I did. So I started reading John, and then I got into it. Then I started going through the Gospels. And then I went through Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. And then I feel like I could graduate to read something in the Old Testament or anything like that. So my mind was already changing because of the words that I was reading. The words actually were changing my life, And I think that's where it brought self-awareness, responsibility, ownership. And then part of it is God's not going to just drop pixie dust on your life. Like, oh, that guy's more blessed than me because God must love him more than me. No. I really believe God strengthens people who are making it happen and who are open to him. So it's a partnership. I give all credit to him for what he's accomplished in my life since I was a kid and to where I'm at today. All credit goes to him. But I also know I work hard too. So I believe the Lord blesses hard work as well.
That's super awesome.
Yeah.
So while you were getting into, um, is the proper term to say like religion or just Christianity? What's that? How do you
I was
differentiate that? If you
Yeah.
could explain that,
Well, it
because I'm a
is.
little confused with
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It
Yeah.
is a religion,
Yeah.
of course. It's a world religion,
Mm-hmm.
and the three major ones are, um, we'll call it what? Judaism. They all come out of the same person,
Mm-hmm.
Abraham. Okay, Judaism, which is the Hebrew faith, Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's Islam,
It's like Muslim
the
and
Muslims, right? That comes out of Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the other one is actually that comes out of the Jewish faith, which is Abraham and the Jewish faith and Jesus and Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it's a religion, but also you can be religious with have all these rules. Don't do this, don't do that,
Yeah, that's more so what I'm asking, the
Yeah.
clarification of.
Yeah.
So you can be Christian but not religious.
Yeah. Okay, let me clarify that.
Mhm.
So if someone says, "Oh, are you a religious person?" I'll probably say, "Yeah."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a religious person. I believe in God. I believe in His Son. I believe the Holy Spirit. I live my life according to these tenets of faith. I have a compass that is more than a moral compass. It's a compass that comes from God, from the Bible that I read. I follow the golden rule, which is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I believe that I'm supposed to be salt and light. Salt permeates flavors, light penetrates, shines. We're called to be salt and light. I believe all of these things. Yes, it is. They are religious things.
Mm-hmm.
I have a faith in God, not just I believe there is a God, and a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make you a Christian. I believe in God.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there is a God. I believe there's a creator of the universe, a one true God. I believe He created everything. I believe He sent His Son, and I believe that He moved in my life, changed me like He changes thousands of people, millions across the world that give their lives to Him and trust Him. And nobody's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And Christianity is not about being perfect, because none of us are. We're being perfected. But there's only one perfect person that ever walked this planet, and it was His Son. And yeah, so that's where I put my whole life into it. My whole faith, everything is in Him.
Okay, cool. One thing that I wonder a lot about, because I'm around so many different people and I've lived abroad and just seen so many different religions and
Yeah.
beliefs, and from like talking with everybody and hearing people who are Christian, Muslim, Mormon, Buddhist, all that, I'm thinking like, how do we know, like, if we had no knowledge of like, this is the most popular one, this is I guess what most people believe in, like, how would we know which one to believe in and who is the real, I guess, religion, the one true God?
Okay. That's a great question. I respect everybody's choice of belief system, who they worship, what they worship. I respect it. In the same way that I would wish to be respected too, right? And so the reason why I believe that Christianity is the way is because if I look at this, look at all the archaeological evidence that backs up everything in the Bible. And then years later, they find the Dead Sea Scrolls where the Essenes begin, they find these scrolls, they unroll the scrolls that backs up everything in the book of Isaiah that was spoken about 700 years before Jesus' birth. So you have multiple backup stories. Then you have Josephus, and Josephus is actually a Roman, he's Roman, he's not Christian. He's a historian, and he comes in and he writes things that actually a non-Christian is valid, a non-Jewish person is validating the life of Jesus, but also the Old Testament. Okay, this is a Roman. Then you have all of this archaeological evidence that backs everything up that the Bible talks about. And so to me, the main factor is that Jesus was crucified, tortured, crucified, put in a grave, sealed with Roman soldiers on the outside, but it resurrects from the dead 3 days later and is no longer in the grave. And now you have all of these witnesses, these eyewitnesses for the next 40 days when he comes back to earth for 40 days and he's communing with his people in that moment of time. And now when you look, he's no longer here. He's everywhere now, right? Now he's seated at the right hand of the Father. And you look at this, that none of these religions, none of the religions that we're talking about, nobody resurrected from the dead. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't spoken about years before that this would happen through many prophets about that resurrection happening. And so that's why I can put my faith and trust in that also because of the Word of God, because of the Bible, and everything that happened there is happening now. And there is more to come that is going to be fulfilled. And a lot of it is still end times, last days stuff about talking about what's going to happen. Really what we think about is the world either revolves around me, where I live, or the world revolves around the state we live in, or the world revolves around as an American, right? We're thinking around policy, elections in D.C. And then if you read the Bible, the world really revolves around what God is doing around Israel, So it's pretty fascinating time to live in. I mean, it's crazy. It's getting kind of crazy.
Totally. Yeah, I wonder when I hear people's upbringings, like, what if you grew up as a Mormon, right? Then you're going to believe that. Yeah. That is the truth. If you're a Jehovah's Witness, you believe that is the truth. So do you ever want, like, what if your friends were like, come to this church, and it was like a Jehovah's Witness church or like a Mormon church? Do you think you would have still got into that type of religion, or you would have known, like, in your heart, like,
because growing up I knew enough people that were that went to Kingdom Hall, Jehovah's Witnesses, and nothing wrong with that. I mean, actually, I had a crush on a girl that was a Jehovah's Witness. She couldn't date me because of that, when I was in high school. Yeah. Prettiest girl. Oh my gosh. And then I had enough Mormon friends, and it never really spoke to me to become a Mormon. I think I wasn't really, like, again, I wasn't looking for a religion. Yeah. I wasn't looking for that.
It found you.
It found me. That's why Jesus went after the one and leaves the 99 to go find the lost sheep. And I was one of those, definitely. Yeah. So I probably would have had a belief system anyway, because you create your own belief system, right? It's your own belief system, whatever it is. It's through past experience or influences, or what you would gravitate to. So we all come up with our own belief system until we find, I guess, the faith that we've been looking for, or what we've been looking for all along. And so I'm just glad that I got introduced to a very good church that actually read the Bible, preached from it. And I'm glad that I had a community of people that didn't look down on a single dad, because I thought people would. Oh, where's her mom? Who's this guy who's this guy showing up all the time with this little girl? Who's this guy? You know what I mean? I'm glad that I didn't get judged for being that. And I'm glad that the pastor eventually took an interest in me. And because it changed my life, man.
That's so cool.
I could do anything, but this is what I'm called to do.
Yeah. You found your faith.
Yeah.
I found my faith. Her last name is Rogers.
Yeah. Good one. Yeah.
Okay, we have a million things that we can get into. Yeah. But one final question I had before going into the shishi break, and we'll get into the because my bladder it's filling up right now. And I want to ask about, like, Hawaiian and Christianity. But we have our social media fan questions that we have to get into. Okay. But when you mentioned lost sheep, one common theme that I see with people getting into some sort of religion is they are lost. And they're looking for something. They're looking for some sort of, like, moral compass, or some faith, something to believe in, some sort of value. So do you think that people who are not lost should also, say like somebody like their life is good, like they're not really like lost, they know who they are, but they don't feel like they need to go to church or they need to read the Bible or whatever. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting because when I was lost, I never know I was lost. You know what I mean?
So you could think that you're not lost, but you're lost.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's possible. The way that I see it, like people could totally disagree with that, and I totally respect it, but that's the way I would say it. The other part is the great philosopher C.S. Lewis. You heard of him?
Yeah. Isn't he a writer?
Yeah. Incredible writer. Incredible. I highly suggest you buy anything from C.S. Lewis. And he says that every man was created with a God-shaped void in their heart. God-shaped void in their heart. Every person. And they spend their whole life trying to fill that void with something else. Success, relationship, achievement, self-worth, physical fitness, all of that. But it still doesn't quite fit until they actually come to God and it's a perfect fit.
It's like that one missing puzzle piece.
Yeah. Still, I feel like I'm who I'm supposed to be, but not quite. There's still something missing.
Yeah, something feels off.
Yeah. And I would say that, man, if your life is good for you. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to be down and out. You don't have to be like lost. You lost. I would say that God loves everyone, and everyone is at their own place in life, right? And so you could be super successful, you could be upper middle class, wealthy, you could be down and out. At the end of the day, we all have that void. Doesn't matter who we are. We have that void. And he created us that way to want him, to look for him. And so, I probably spent 3 to 4 years of my life trying to fill that void with a relationship, with validation, affirmation, thinking that that person would complete me. And when I look back, the only person that can complete me is my relationship with God. Everything else is gravy. Everything else is icing on the cake, gravy all over the mac salad. Everything else is,
Awesome. Yeah. Well, mahalo for sharing that.
Thank you.
Let's take a quick shishi break and we'll be right back. What if we told you the next 3 times you fill your tank, you could save money? Well, at Texaco in Hawaii, it's true. You can get $1 off per gallon on your next 3 visits when you download the Texaco app and join Texaco Rewards. Earn points on every fuel transaction and qualifying in-store purchases at participating Texaco stations. Download the app and join to get started today. Visit TexacoHawaii.com for details. All right, we're back from a quick shishi break. Let's get right into the social media fan questions. First one comes from B. Kai. This person says, who's your favorite daughter?
Yeah, you would expect that from my middle daughter, Becca. I don't have any favorites. They're all favorite in their own special way. I have 3 beautiful daughters after Courtney. We can talk about that, how I met Lisa. And so we had Becca. And then after Becca, we waited because the blended family thing was hard. It was rough. It was hard for Courtney too, for my daughter. I'm so proud of her today, but it was hard for her to not have her mom in her life. Rough. But we're not going to go too deep into that. But I can tell you that, after we had that 2 girls and blended and stepmom, Lisa became the stepmom. And it was hard for her too, you know what I mean? And then I felt like I was in the middle. And then so we said, okay, let's pump the brakes on having any more kids for now.
Yeah.
And then when we tried, we had a hard time get pregnant. We had a hard time. So we did everything but in vitro fertilization. And then when we stopped blaming each other, it must be you or it's you, because a lot of couples go through that, right? They go through the motility, the whole infertility, all that stuff. And then finally we just relaxed. All right, if it happens, it happens. And it happened. Wow. And so we had our youngest one, Karis. So we have 3 daughters. They're beautiful. They're feisty. They're creative. They're awesome. I love them all.
Okay. Well, you hear that, Becca? He loves you equally to your other sisters.
Yeah.
Okay. That's just how it is in Hawaii. Everybody got blended families, even me,
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
two step parents, I got
Yep.
half sibling, step sibling. It's awesome. I love
It
when,
is.
um, those people can put the kids first.
Yeah.
I am very grateful to my parents
Yeah.
for putting us first. I know it wasn't easy for them, but for us, it was easy
Mm.
because they made it easy.
Wow.
And I grew up thinking like, wow, this is like having step parents it's so awesome. And I'd see movies where it's like the evil stepmom or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And now as I'm older and I'm hearing more of people's upbringings, even my girlfriend's, like how hard it was for like, her parents and like being separated from like siblings and parents. And I was like, wow, my parents really did a great job at giving us this life, because for the most people, it's not.
Yeah.
I feel very blessed and grateful for them for doing that.
That's awesome. Yeah. You ever tell them that?
Yeah, I tell
Yeah.
them that. Well,
That's
they
awesome.
listen to the podcast, so
Yeah.
my mom.
There you go, Mom and
my
Dad.
mom will call me and she'll be like,
Oh, that's
I heard
sweet.
you." Yeah,
That's awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome.
totally. So I'm just like, yeah, and like it's hard for me to hear these stories of just like all the dramas between like step families and like baby mamas, baby daddies, and
Yeah.
mean step parents or like crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
just like I'm just grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. All right, next question comes from Mele no Kea'a. This person says, big fan of Pastor Mike and this podcast. Pastor Mike, what led you to give your life to the Lord? So you already shared that.
Yeah.
But I want to like change his question a little bit, because I
Okay.
wanted to get this fan question in
Okay.
and say like, what made you become a pastor?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted to be a pastor. I saw what the pastor did, and all I thought was, oh, he only preach, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be in business. So I wanted to follow my dad's footsteps and just become like my older brother, let's just go make it work, right? So we already had this mentality, like you got to go make it work. It's no matter what, nothing's going to be given to you. And so I thought I was headed down the path of business. I'd get there eventually. Sales, so I was hustling. And so during that time, I was avoiding what I knew was going to be inevitable, that I would become maybe a pastor one day. I didn't know. I'm not even thinking about a church building and hundreds or thousands of people. I'm just thinking I don't want to do that, because I know I'm going to have to live a life of, there's a lot of things you're going to have to say no to be able to say yes to that. So it's not a vocation choice, not a career choice. It's going to be, are you sure you are called? Because I'm still big into, you got to find your calling. What's your calling, right? What's your purpose? What is the God-designed destiny for your life? And I highly recommend everybody goes after that, because his plan is always better than your plan, always better than my plan. My plan was Air Force. My plan was business. This is his plan, and I'm being obedient to that plan. And so when I was avoiding it, I meet Lisa at church after about another 2 years of singleness and celibacy. So I was single and celibate.
How old are you?
Dude, I was 21 to 25.
21 to 25. Wow.
4 years.
Hormones in full effect.
Hormones in full effect, but I was okay. You know what I mean? Like I was like, right? I know it was only, don't even think it. Don't even think, you know what I mean? I didn't even date in that period of time. Didn't date. Because I was still contending for something different, right? And even in that period, during that separation period, I did not date. I wanted to, but I didn't. And then after that period, when it came to an end with her mom, I can tell you this: there's another year I stayed single again, and I stayed celibate for another year. Because I had a feeling like I was like resaving myself. You know what I mean? I'm saving myself for someone else, and I don't know who it is. I don't know what she looks like, but I do have a list now, because I don't want to make another mistake. Like I'm not going to go find her in the place that I found what I found love the last time. I want to find her in church. But I didn't go to church to creep. I didn't go to church to date. That would be a wrong motive to find girls. I was still in the same church when I was broken, and I'm in the same church while I'm being healed. And now I know what I want in a woman. And what I want is someone that can run with me faith-wise, that loves the Lord more than she would even love me. Because then I'm not completing her, because I'm going to fail. And she's not completing me. She's going to fail. We're sure going to try, though. And I prayed. I said, Lord, if I could ever get married, could she be, this tall? Can she be gorgeous Chinese and love the Lord, love the Lord more than me? Because I know we can make it through any storm. And someone that's what we call equally yoked. Equally yoked, right? You heard that that's an old Bible term. And when they put the yoke on the oxen.
Oh, that's an old Bible term. I was thinking equally yoked as in like Jack, like that guy's yoked. So I thought it was more like a metaphor for like being yoked or something.
Oh,
like,
no.
Just like, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I could think about that for a moment. We got to be equally yoked on that too.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Equally yoked in Christ.
Yeah. And so when I met Lisa, we dated, and, we kind of broke up for a little bit because our focus was coming off of God now. It was more on our relationship. And we both recognized that. And we were no longer... Well, so I backed that up to say that we got married within 14 months. Yeah, even though we broke up once.
Yeah.
I couldn't live... 16 months. I couldn't live without her. I realized that she might have checked every box, but it wasn't about checking boxes. It was all about, I felt like this was going to be a partnership. And so when I married Lisa, she was already working she was a head volunteer at Hope Chapel. And before we got married, the pastor was very close to he and his wife were close to her because they kind of looked out for her. And so I remember that when we started dating, he was like, okay, now I got to get to know this guy. Who's this guy? I see him in my church all the time, but I don't even know him. So he came up to me, Pastor Ralph Moore, and he invited me to go to breakfast with him one day. He goes, hey, come to breakfast with me. I'm like, oh my gosh, the pastor wants to have breakfast with me. I was so nervous, Kamaka. And he goes, I go, where are we going? He goes, McDonald's. I'm like, McDonald's, okay. He loves McDonald's. So I go to my first breakfast with him at McDonald's. And I'm figuring that he's trying to just suss me out, right? He's trying to see if I'm legit, if I'm a player, how serious I am. And he started to hear a little bit more about my story. And he goes, you know what? Let's meet me again next Wednesday. Okay, yeah. So I drive all the way from Manoa, drive over, meet with him. Actually, we moved to Aina Haina at that time, and I would go meet with him for breakfast at 7 o'clock in the morning at McDonald's. One McDonald's breakfast Wednesday turned into like 8. And before I know it, he's actually kind of discipling me. He's teaching me. He's bringing me along this journey. And I got his blessing to do the wedding. He marries me and Lisa, and it's a big deal. Courtney didn't want to come down the aisle. She's the flower girl. She's like, no, she was pouting. She wouldn't come down. So Lisa had to grab her hand and walk down the aisle with her. I was like, oh boy, here we go. And we had the reception in Waikiki, afternoon lunch. Everybody left. Okay, everybody go home already. It's been 5 years, single, celibate. Here we go. I'm kind of excited about the honeymoon, right? Been waiting for this. And Pastor Ralph and his wife, when everybody leaves, comes straight up to me, Kamaka, puts his finger, like at that time, his finger looked like 2 feet long, puts it right in my chest. And he goes, you ought to be a pastor. And I felt like this tidal wave picked me up, bro. I honestly felt like apprehension. I was like, no, don't do this to me. No. And I kind of messed with my head that night, the honeymoon, put a little damper on the honeymoon, because that was a big thing that it wasn't out of the blue. I knew it was going to happen, but I didn't think it was going to happen that day. I knew somehow I was going to go in that direction, and I didn't want to. And finally, For the next year, I decided that I'm going to pursue this business all in and forget about that. And I would journal all the time. And at the end of the day, bro, I want to do what God wants me to do. And I hope that's not what he wants me to do, because I want to do this.
Yeah.
I want to be a millionaire. I want to build a business. I want to do all of that. And then finally, at the end of that 1 year, I looked at it and I talked to some of my friends, and I realized I'm literally being called to do this. And it wasn't you're called to something big. No, it was called just to obedience. Just can you follow the next step? Sometimes God's not going to show you the big picture. He shows you the next step. And the next step was, okay, all right, step up as a volunteer a little bit more. And then finally they would come up to me to tell me, hey, we got to get you on staff. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then 3 months later, man, we got to get you on staff. Yeah, okay, all right, I'm here. I'm working all these jobs. Let me know, man. You know, I got to give up one of these. Let me know. 1 year into it, we got to get you on staff. I said, can you guys stop telling me that? Because you're filling me with apprehension and hope. And they took it serious. And they said, okay. So they created a position called a young married couples ministry. So if you were married 5 years or less, you went into this group. And so I did that, and still working my job at American Airlines and the restaurant, and married to Lisa. And we moved to Kaneohe, and there I am. And then finally, the youth pastor gets let go. And after about 2 years, Pastor Ralph said, hey, I want you to be the youth pastor. I said, I don't want to be the youth pastor. He goes, why? I said, I don't like high school kids. He goes, why? I said, I don't know. They're irritating. He goes, you'll love them. You sure? He's like, yeah. He goes, would you do it? I said, if you need me to do it, I'll do it. So I said, okay, I do it. So I'm the youth pastor, and I love it, Kamaka. It was like the best 4 to 5 years that I had. I cut my teeth, learned how to teach, learned how to speak. I had, it's hard to keep high school kids engaged, bro. It's like you're doing a song and dance. You try, hey, over here, guys. There's no phones back then. Well, maybe small Nokias. But what I loved about it was I loved to see their growth. We had a lot going on in campuses. Castle High School was pretty much Kamehameha. A lot of kids at Kamehameha was coming to our youth ministry. And I loved it. I was taking missions teams to Japan. These kids would go to me to Japan. We had a pipeline of kids going to Whitworth College in Washington or Azusa Pacific. And then finally, just when you're having the time of your life, God says, I got something else for you. And I remember driving up the hill to Hope Chapel Kaneohe, now called Anchor Church. Great church if you live on the Kaneohe side, the windward side. I'm driving up the hill in my used Volvo. I always bought Volvos because I can fix the oil, change the oil, and the 240 DL coming up the long driveway to Anchor. And I hear a voice inside of me that says, you won't be here long. And I know that this is God. I freak out because I've never heard his voice like that before. Never. Up until then, never. And I pull over and I start looking for Pastor Ralph. It's a Sunday night. He's never there on a Sunday night. I'm about to do my youth ministry. And I get out, my youth service, I get out, and I'm looking, he's there. And I walk up to him. And I said, Pastor Ralph, can I talk to you? He's like, yeah. I said, I don't want you to make any moves. He goes, okay, we're not gonna make any moves. I said, I just heard God speak to me in my voice, in my heart. This is what he said. He said, I won't be here long. Now, if it's me, I'm going like, okay, how can we move you out? Like, how can we, you know what I mean? Like, what? You're not gonna be here. And he was so gracious. And I think he knew. And he said, you know what? Thank you for telling me, Mike. Most guys, they don't share this stuff. They hold it close. And I said, please don't make any moves. I love it here. I love it here. My wife works here. I had my kids here. My kids love the church. I don't want to leave, but I heard it. And he goes, we'll take our time. Don't you worry about it. Okay. Now, I don't even know what I'm going to, Kamaka. I don't know. All I know is I love this and I don't want to give this up. But my experience is every time I say yes, it's hard, but it's worth it. And so, well, I get on the youth circuit. I speak in Oregon. And I'm a youth pastor now. And this guy goes, I speak 7 times. I never spoke 7 times before in 1 week. I'm in my tent writing new sermons, bro. I'm squeezing. And the kids loved it. The youth pastor in Eugene loved it. It was the most amazing camp. I get on an airplane. I'm flying home, Hawaiian Airlines out of Portland, Oregon. And I open up the envelope and they gave me a check for like $700 for speaking 7 times. I couldn't believe it. I said, look, they fly me. They gave me $700. When I do camps with my other friends in Hawaii, we give you a t-shirt, bro. Here's a t-shirt.
Plate lunch.
T-shirt, hot dog, plate
Side
lunch.
Mac.
Keep the cost down, right? And so I said yes. And I looked at this. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I want to be a youth pastor forever. I'm digging this. I'm loving kids. I'm using a gift that God gave me. I'm getting better at it. And then the day that I get home, I get 1 day off. I got my camp coming up. And then pastor calls me into his office. And he goes, hey, how's your vacation? I said, it's great. He goes, well, you're back. And like, yeah, I got camp this week. He goes, okay. He goes, there's a church that is wants they need a pastor, and they're wondering if you want to do it. I'm like, are you serious? I go, where's the church? He goes, it's in Waikele. Waikele? I didn't even know we had a church in Waikele. Yeah, it's called Hope Chapel Waikele. Waikele? Waikele, it's just a fancy name for Waipahu. Bro, it's like they ain't got no zip code. It's just a fancy name for Waipahu. And he goes, no, look, they need a pastor. He said, Rob turned it down, so they're asking you. I said, oh, I'm the second choice. And I had a hard time with that. He goes, no, look, you'd be great at it. Go. I'm like, Pastor, I already got my youth camp this week. How can I do that? And he goes, well, just pray about it. He goes, I thought about going and leaving you here. I was like, are you serious? He goes, no, I thought about it. And I said, okay. I'll pray about it. I'm not excited about it, though, I'll be honest, because I love it here. I don't see myself there. I can see myself in Honolulu. Yeah, I could go to Honolulu, but Waikele, that's out there. He's like, yeah, pray about it. Well, that night, this is how God works. That night, Sunday night, I got, my youth camp is coming up on Tuesday, so on Sunday night, I got my youth service again, and this guy from Japan comes. His name is Jeff. Jeff brings 2 guys with him. Jeff is speaking at my youth service. He's a Japan missionary. He's ADD. He's awesome. Kids love him. I'm sitting in the courtyard. I'm trying to make sure I can get as many kids to camp as possible. I'm getting donations. I'm trying to sponsor kids. And my mind is on the camp, not just on the service. So I'm sitting alone with this guy. Like, Jeff leaves me with this guy. I'm kind of irritated, a little bit annoyed. Like, hey, how's it, bro? My name's Mike. He goes, hey, I'm Ray. I said, nice to meet you. He's like, yeah, nice to meet you too. He goes, I said, so who'd you come with? Oh, I came with Jeff. How you know Jeff? We go way back. Okay, right on. Hope Chapel Mililani days. I'm like, okay. And he goes, he says to me, he goes, so I said to him, wait, so back this up. He goes, I asked him, so how do you know Jeff? He goes, oh, I go, what do you do? He goes, oh, I'm a pastor. You're a pastor? Where? Because I thought I knew everybody, right, at this point in our Hope Chapel family. He goes, oh, Hope Chapel Waikele? What? Bro, did Ralph talk to Jeff? You're leaving. He goes, nobody knows yet. I said, but I know. He's like, did they put you up? Did they come here? Did they bring you here to recruit me for you to come here so that I would go take your church? You know, that I would be He goes, I think you'd be great. I said, how do you know? You haven't even heard me speak yet. He goes, no, I think you'd be great. I said, I don't want it. I said, how come you don't want to do it anymore? He goes, I'm kind of just burned out already. I've been bivocational for a long time, and I think it's time for me to focus on my family. And I had a heart for him when he said that, right? Because burnout's a real thing, right? And so I said, okay. I said, well, he said, you should come preach at the church. I said, nah, I don't want to preach at the church. I'll come visit it. He goes, yeah. He goes, please, would you pray about it? I'm like, did they tell you to come here? Because I don't want nobody messing with my life. Yeah. Only God. And he goes, no, nobody told me to come here, bro, to talk to you. Wow, what a trip. So we go to Camp Timberline. You know where that is? In Makakilo? Up in the hills? I call it Camp Terrible, bro. It was bad, bro.
Yeah. Well, I've heard of it. I've never been there.
Yeah. So I have camp up there. So every morning I get up, I got to pray about this church. So I'm still the youth pastor. I get up on the hill and I pray. I'm looking over, now this is 2001. I'm overlooking the Eva Plain. There's not a lot there at the time. I'm overlooking Kapolei. There's a little bit there. And I look at it and I said, God, I don't want to come here. I say, it doesn't rain here. I love the windward side. It reminds me of the big island. God, I don't want to go. But if you want me to go, you got to make it real clear. I run my camp. God does great things, having a great time. Second day, I get up on the same rock, different cup of coffee. And my prayer is the same thing, pretty much. God, I don't want to go. But I'm looking over the plain. If you want me to go, I'll go. But you got to really change my heart. Third day into camp, same rock, new coffee, sit down over the plain. God, I don't want to go, but I'll do what you want me to do. But you're going to have to really change my heart. You know what's crazy? Every time I got up on that rock, my heart started to change. I started to have a love for that side of the island, the people. And by the last day, I'm in tears. My prayer is this: God, I'll go wherever you want me to go. I'll say whatever you want me to say. I'll be whatever you want me to be. I'll just do whatever you want me to do. And then my wife calls me in about 20 minutes. She goes, Mike. I go, hey, babe, how you doing? I miss you. She goes, yeah, guess what? I go, what? We just got 3 nights for free at the DoubleTree Hotel. The DoubleTree, wow. I go, just me and you. She goes, just me and you. I said, awesome. I can't wait to be alone with you. She goes, yeah, we're going to pray. What are you talking about? We got to pray about this church, Mike. We got to take this serious. We're going to fast and pray. I'm like, fast and pray? Who goes to Waikiki to fast and pray? Bro, I'm thinking eat, pray, love. You know what I'm talking about? She's thinking fasting and praying, bro. And I promise you, man, I was like, okay, we're going to do it. And I was like, man, okay, so Lord, we go over there and we do. We walk, we talk, we fast. We're not eating. We're drinking water, juice, and we're praying. And at the end of that third day, my wife says to me, she goes, I think you're ready. I say, you think I'm ready? She says, I think you're ready. I said, really? She goes, yeah. I said, I think so too. It's kind of how quickly in 1 week God can change your heart from something you don't want to do to something that you actually want to do now. So I call pastor. Can I talk to you? Coming out of Waikiki. He goes, yeah, come on over to the office. Up until then, we only talked for 2 minutes. And I come over and I said to him, I said, Pastor, he goes, yep. I go, let me ask you 2 questions before I tell you. He goes, okay. This is number 1. He goes, yeah. Are you trying to get rid of me? You know what I mean? Like, am I being pushed upstairs into management? Yeah. You know, it's like, am I retiring as a, you know, I can't play football anymore, so now I'm gonna be an assistant coach, grad assistant, or whatever. Are you trying to get rid of me? He goes, no, I'm not. He goes, it's a matter of fact. Okay, all right. Okay, question number 2. Why Waikele? Why not Honolulu? You got New Hope, Wayne Cordero there. They're getting a lot of people in Honolulu. He goes, I actually think you're going to get more people on the west side because the growth is going to come there. He's already knew the growth was coming there.
Oh, yeah.
And he said,
it grew.
right? And he goes, guys in your youth ministry, they're going to end up stop coming to your church when they're adults with kids. And I said, okay, third question. He goes, yeah. I go, are you actually trying to make room for your son? And this is your way of doing it gracefully. And he had tears in his eyes and he said, you are my son. You are my son. And I went, all right, we're going. And I had 2 weeks. I didn't have like time to start this. Okay, remember now, this church had 5 pastors. Ray was the 5th in a 13-year span. They had no building, just a cafeteria. They had no offices. And they had like 12 grand in the bank. That's it. And I was thinking marketing. I'm going to use this money for marketing, right? Radio spots. And that's what we had. So in 2 weeks, was gone. 40 people that lived on that side said, we'll come with you. Ralph, let me take anybody you can. In 2 weeks, I get 40 people. They were the best. Wow. We took over. We called it Hope Chapel West Oahu. And our first weekend, man, I tell you what, we had like 150 because it was kind of like a grand opening. Second weekend, boom, dropped down to 80. And so now goes a roller coaster, and we're just faithful in what the little things, and then we would be put in responsibility of more things later. And the first hire was not me. I was still the youth pastor. I had to wait till his son came over. So I had to run the youth ministry at the same time while I'm restarting a church. Wow. Rebrand it at the same time. And so it was hard, bro. That was really hard for me emotionally. And, Yeah, it took an emotional toll for that 5 months where I'm doing both. I'm trying to pump this one up and maintain this one until the handoff happens. And I went through probably a hard emotional time at that time, burnout, kind of hit burnout.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah. And so I remember my first hire was Randy Kimura, still with me to this day. You know where our office was? Borders Bookstore.
Hey, call back to Borders.
Come on, back to Borders. Right at the Waikele Shopping Center. And now it's the Starbucks and the Sephora and Gap. And that was our office. We had 2 cell phones, Nextel. I called them Next to Hell because they never worked. And then 2 Sony Vaio laptops. And we were hustling, meeting people, getting names, getting numbers, having coffees, drank way more coffee than I ever should have in my whole life. And that was the humble beginnings of what would become Inspire Church.
That's so cool. I had no idea about this. Do you share this story with people often?
I remind the people that this is where we came from. Because, they walk into a building or Waikele Shopping Center, which is our main location right now. We're building one in Kapolei, but they walk into that, they think like, oh, wow. No, this doesn't just happen. This is like faithfulness of people from the past.
Yeah.
From year 2001 that, gave, believed, prayed. It's not done on the gifts of a few, but on the sacrifices of many.
Yeah.
And this is why we are where we are today.
So cool, because I see it now as it was my first time going a couple months ago, and I see what it is. Yeah. But to know what it was and how you started it, that just makes the story even more incredible.
And it was, and to be honest with you, like you look back, we had no air conditioning, so we were sweating like crazy. Waikele cafeteria doesn't have any AC when we were there. You had Wayne Cordero that was blowing up with New Hope.
That's where we used to go.
Yeah. Great pastor. Great. I mean, that guy could read the phone book, man. Read the phone book. I would already give my life to the Lord again. He was so eloquent. Like he just was so gifted, right? He could sing, he could act, he could preach. And I used to look at that, and as a young pastor, like a lot of, no matter what you do, you compare, right? Like, I wish I was like that guy. Man, I wish I had what they had. And I remember that I was kind of feeling a little bummed. Like, man, we can't get ahead. I'm trying, and all the good musicians are going there, and we're just bare bones. But we're so gritty. We're so faithful, and I'm so thankful, right? But at the same time, I know there's got to be more. So at that time, University of Hawaii, right, we had Colt Brennan, Chad Owens.
The good years.
The great years.
Yeah.
I would actually, you heard, I don't know if you heard me say this, though. I actually would, as soon as I ended my Saturday night service, somebody would drive me to Aloha Stadium, drop me off. I'd catch the second half. I'd go sit in the yellow section at the top and watch the play develop. I'd watch Chad just tear it up. And I remember that we had a rivalry at that time, and the rivalry was with the Fresno State Bulldogs. And with Fresno State, Pat Hill was the coach. He looked like a biker that happened to be a football coach, right? He had the handlebar mustache, the Fu Manchu. He would growl on the sidelines, walk back and forth. And his motto, I believe at that time, was anybody, anytime, any place. So they go play Auburn, they almost beat them. They play Alabama, almost beat them. They go to USC, beat USC. Wow. And so I'm opening up the sports page, and this is how God spoke to me through a sports page. I'll open the sports page, and he was asked a question, I believe, by either Ferd Lewis or Stephen Tsai from The Advertiser. And he said, look, everybody knows that you guys are playing all these big schools, and now people want you to come over and be on their program. You want to go from a mid-major to a Pac-10 or whatever conference, whatever, Big Ten at the time. He goes, you know what? Everybody says that the grass is greener on the other side. He goes, I just figured I'll make my own grass green. When I heard that like chicken skin, I said, I'm gonna make my own grass green. I'm gonna make my own grass green. I'm gonna teach my team how to do things. We're gonna go to places and do a site visit and see what other people are doing, how they're doing it. We're gonna bring it back here. We're gonna become our own, and we're gonna make it our own, and we're just gonna make our own grass green. And so that stuck with me to this day.
Wow. Yeah, they said the grass isn't green on the other side. It's green where you water it, right?
So good.
So you watered your own grass. You used to cut grass, now you water your own grass.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So is Inspire the biggest church in Honolulu right now?
I don't know. It might be.
Pretty big.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
Yeah.
Maybe on Oahu, there's a lot of great churches. I have a lot of unity with a lot of pastors. I don't know everybody yet. You know, there's some new churches that have come here from the mainland, and I'd love to meet them. But the guys that have been here for a while, like, we're close.
Okay.
Yeah. And everybody's going through a growth spurt, though, right now. That's what I've noticed. I'm hearing stories of people that their churches are reaching more people than ever before. And I think all ships rise with the same tide. And I think everybody's rising right now. I think that there's a hunger in Hawaii for something spiritual, that people are realizing I need something. And people are gravitating to wherever they gravitate to, but I also find a lot of people gravitating toward church. They're finding a place that they can worship. They're making the effort. They realize that this world is getting crazier and crazier. The islands are not what they used to be, right? We're trying to keep what we had. As things change geopolitically, as things change politically in our islands or socially, a lot of things are changing, and a lot of people are trying to hold on to what we had, and I'm one of those people. I love Hawaii. I love what we stand for. I love the people. I love being, Hawaiian. I love that I grew up here, and I'm seeing more people that are coming to church than ever before. It's blowing my mind. Yeah.
It's good, and also kind of makes you raise your eyebrow, like, why? Like, it's awesome more people are going to church, but also, like, why are more people going to church now? Is it because the world is getting worse?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think one time, one of my uncles from San Francisco, he and his wife, there was a funeral about a long time ago during the global financial crisis, okay? And he mistook me for my older brother. I don't know how you can do that, but he did. Just kidding. So anyway, he goes, "Hey, you must be doing good, huh? Like, how you doing?" Because my brother was in the market at that time. And I go, "Oh, I think you're thinking about my brother." I'm Michael. "Oh, you're the pastor." I'm like, "Yeah." "Oh, you must be doing good right now too, huh?" I go, "Why would you say that? This is interesting. Why would you say that?" He goes, "Because in a down economy, two things go up." I go, "What?" He goes, "Church attendance and alcoholism." I went, "What? Is that what you, really?" He goes, "Yep. So you must be doing good because the economy is really bad." I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I found that pretty interesting. And you know what? He was right. I don't know about alcoholism, but I do know that our church grew during the global financial crisis. I think when there's a crisis, whether it's a natural crisis or a man-made disaster, natural or man-made, I think people get nervous. I think for Hawaii, I think there's my perspective, okay? My perspective is we're in the middle of the Pacific. We got nowhere to drive through. If a hurricane's coming, you live in Florida, you're on that highway, and you're driving to Alabama. You're getting out of harm's way, right? You're in Hawaii. You're either getting on a plane or you're going to stay here and pray. You're going to stay here and prepare. You're going to stay here and make sure that everybody's okay. And you're going to ride it out. And thank God we haven't had any massive hurricane hit us since Iniki. But we've had hurricane after hurricane line up, right? It's like Hurricane Alley. And so what I'm seeing is not hurricanes. I'm seeing that there's enough pressure in the world right now. We're under pressure. We've got a nation that's divided. We got even our own people are divided. We have all of this, right? And I think people are looking for, I just want God. We need to go back to church. And I applaud the families that wake up, get their kids ready, rushing them out the door. They want to make the service. They don't want to be late, right? They don't get, they got to get on the shuttle. They had an argument in the car. Dad is thinking about, forget this. We're going home, right? Somebody's got to give up football that morning or whatever it is. And they come to church. To me, that blows me away. That blows me away. And I don't take it for granted.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's also awesome that there's online services now. My parents always do that.
Yeah. Online.
Send us the link.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, what an incredible story. I get more and more respect for you, the more we talk and the more I learn about your story. The next question comes from Brandon.m808. This person says, what do you think it means to be a pastor?
Well, the term pastor really comes from an agricultural term. An agricultural term means for pastoral, from the pasture, right?
I didn't know that.
And so when you look at kahuhipa, it means shepherd, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So kahu, shepherd. To be a pastor, well, I think that, number one, it's a calling for sure. And some people have that calling when they're younger. Sometimes it's passed on from one father to the next father. Like, I don't have any biological sons, right? So normally if you're a pastor, your son's going to take over when you retire. It's very close to the Levitical priesthood in Judaism, right? So if you're a priest, you're likely going to be, your son's going to be a priest, okay? Or if you're, he's a rabbi, he's probably going to be a rabbi. Not all the time, but quite often. If I look at this and I go, pastor, the job description of a pastor, I think number one is to be able to love people. You got to love people, right? I like my alone time, but I love people. I want people to love me, but I love people, number one. Number two, a pastor protects. So I want to protect the flock. Okay, I want to protect them from wolves in sheep's clothing. I want to protect them from, I want to be able to provide, prepare, help them understand this is what's going on in the world, because most people are not watching the news anymore. So I don't want to scare the sheep, make them skittish by, well, this is what's going on in Ukraine, this is what's going on in Israel right now, this is what could happen with China. Did you know that China just shot a missile over the Pacific and didn't warn Kiribati, but they warned a few of our allies? They hadn't done that since 1940 or 1950 that did that. There are certain things that I will not bring up on a Sunday morning because most people they're unaware. They're not reading the paper anymore. They don't trust mainstream media. They're getting their news from pretty much social media outlets. And so you've got all these different things going on. So it's protect, prepare. So I prepare my people too, not just with the word of God, but I'm also preparing them. Hey, if we ever get hit with a hurricane, you got to have 6 months of food. You got it per person, because there's only 5 days, 7 days of food on the island at one time on Oahu. So you got to be prepared. So you're not one of those people at Costco getting into a fight, right? Over toilet paper. Yeah. So you got to prepare. So I think you have to pray for the people. You have to love people, pray for the people, prepare the people. And I think teach the people, teach them the word of God. And then everybody has to teach themselves. They have to read the Bible themselves, not just show up on Sunday, binge on Sunday, and nothing throughout the whole week. They got to learn to feed themselves. Pastor Wayne was big on saying that, feed yourself. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, keep it, make it more sustainable. It's like diets, right? It's like, I'll eat healthy today, and then the rest of the day or the rest of the week I just eat cookies and whatever.
Yeah, I wish I could do that. I could do that in my early 20s. Can't do that anymore.
You got to make it a lifestyle.
Yes,
that's what it is.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Next question comes from Michele Halelu 33. This is my dad. He says, "He mea nui ka pule, hiki paha ia kahu mai ke pule. He kipet aloha pule." He says, prayer is a big thing. Can Pastor Mike do a prayer? Maybe like a kipet aloha prayer. I was thinking it would be cool if you could close out our show with a prayer. So if we can maybe remember that at the end.
100%.
Okay, cool. So yeah, that's my dad, who is also Mike.
Yeah. Awesome dad.
Yeah, he's so awesome. All right, so we'll do a prayer at the end. And you don't got to do it in Hawaiian, don't worry.
Oh, thank God.
Man, it's so funny because growing up, he'd always do the prayers and he does it in like Hawaiian. And then he doesn't, so when people ask, oh, can you do this prayer? Like, okay, they'll ask me and I'll just do it in Hawaiian, right?
Yeah.
But his prayers are like so long because he does it in Hawaiian and then he translates his own self into English mid-prayer. So, I mean, it's awesome, but it's just like, it kind of makes it a little long sometimes.
Yeah. Twice as long the prayer. But you know what? I love it though. I love how you were brought up, speaking the language, being taught that. That is a gift. That's a gift. I want to learn. I want to learn more. I don't know when I'm going to find the time, but I'm going to make time.
Totally.
And it's a huge part of our culture, like that you get to speak that you learn that you were raised with that. That's amazing.
Yeah, very blessed.
Yeah.
Among the other things that I've been blessed with.
It's a beautiful language.
Totally.
Our language is beautiful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, next question comes from Henry Motunui. This person says, what does it mean now to be a son of Hawaii during crazy times like these? So you started to talk about, the things going on here. So what does it mean to be a son of Hawaii during these times?
A son of Hawaii. A son of Hawaii. I think, okay, so I'm automatically gravitating to responsibility, kuleana. Take responsibility for your loved ones. You know what I mean? Be ready during crazy times. That's what he said, right? That's the context. During crazy times. Times could get crazier. So are you prepared? Are you prepared that if things get crazy, if something happens, and I pray nothing does, but if something happens, that you're ready. Look at what happened to Maui. Nobody was prepared for that.
Yeah.
That happened in 8 hours or less, right? And the people were not prepared, and they were reacting. And thank God that a lot of people got out with their lives, right? But they lost a lot. And so if we could learn from different examples, even though we may not have a wildfire, something else could happen. Nobody could ever, right? Nobody thought this would happen, but we can see how it all could happen, right? Not enough water, right? There's no, what do you call it? No watershed on that side. Holding back, never mind, I'm gonna stop. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. So I think to be a son of Hawaii, that's an interesting one. I think to be a son of Hawaii means that, you just, like, you take responsibility for your family, for your neighborhood, for your people. I think in crazy times, that's what I would expect of the responsibility of a male to do.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I think with, that being said, taking care of your immediate community, your family, your friends, your, neighbors, that's important, because if you're taking care of yourself, somebody else doesn't have to take care of you.
Yeah.
And then that, it gets worse when it's like, oh, this person doesn't have something, this person's going through it. Not everybody's like leaving their own kind of shelter to take care of this person, and then it just gets worse and worse because like something's unattended. And I think that's, it will just keep getting crazier. So like if the people, all these shootings and stuff, if they took care of their own household, if they took care of, their responsibilities, then these things wouldn't get out into the community. Yeah. And, so I think that's a really good, kuleana that we have, is just take care of ourselves so we can take care of others.
Okay. No. Okay. So can I go one step further?
Yeah. Totally.
I've been telling our church for the last 3 years that you've got to be natural disaster prepared and man-made disaster prepared. So the worst case scenarios of a hurricane is docks, right? Food is not coming in. If you get a tsunami, the docks are devastated. And we don't have, the only deep water draft harbors outside of Oahu that can handle it is really Kauai. From what I understand, I've been briefed by the former number 2 of civil defense, called Haima. I brought him in to brief us, my staff, on preparedness, natural disaster or man-made disaster preparedness. And if you were to run just scenarios that if you're not prepared for 6 months of food per person, now praise God if we don't need it, right? Thank God, I don't need it. Okay, so you give it away or you eat it, you eat some of your supply, okay? But always have enough water and food in your house. I've been telling my church this for 2 to 3 years. I don't know how many people listening, paying attention to that. But don't be, you already know, like, okay, by day 1, the shelves are going to be empty. By day 2, the model says that there will be fighting. Day 3, there's looting. And they say by day 3 and 4, there's killing. And so to be able to prepare for your own family, but then get other people in your neighborhood to prepare, then you create a hui just to take sure that everybody taking care of everybody themselves. We're going to get through it until things can get online. So until we can fix the harbors, or until we get electricity back, or if the grid goes down, or EMP happens, and all of a sudden we lose networking. We can't even communicate. All of that. You got to be able to, a minimum, probably about 6 months is good for each person. And if you don't need it, then that's a blessing that you didn't need it. But just stock up now, prepare now. You can go online, buy stuff, or you can go to Costco, Sam's Club, and just buy stuff that's gonna last. Because your freezer food is gonna be gone, right? Your freezer food is gonna be gone. Everything's gonna melt, and so you're gonna end up eating a lot of spam, brother. Pork and beans, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, mahalo for sharing. That's something that we should really be more mindful of.
Yeah,
totally.
Being in the middle of the Pacific, we need to.
Awesome. And that's why, sustainability is such a big thing here. And there's such a push for, people being able to grow more agriculture.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the Big Island, considered the bread basket, could be, right? Could be the bread basket for the rest of the state. I mean, in the Eva Plains, we're putting up solar panels where, man, would be great if we had actually like food that we're planting. What if every house, every apartment, if you had a house, right, you're renting or whatever, what if you planted like something that could sustain you? Banana trees, what if you had breadfruit? Or if you had enough room for that, rather than, I told my wife, you cannot eat one palm tree. We gotta maybe plant more edible landscapes.
Yeah.
That you can take care of yourself. Like a lot of people got into gardening during COVID. I tried, never worked. But I think that if we could plant more edible landscapes around our house, that'll sustain us too. Those things.
Totally.
Yeah.
I agree. All right. Next question comes from Louis Yen. This person says, for people who feel their sin is too great, what would you say to help them forgive themselves?
Great question, Louis. No sin is too great that God cannot forgive. No sin is too great. When you look at the people that have Jesus forgave, right? The thief on the cross. There are two thieves, one on each side. One mocked him, said, get us all down if you're really God, right? And the other one said, hey, what are you doing? He's innocent. And then he asks Jesus to remember me when you enter into paradise, enter your kingdom. And Jesus said to him, the thief on the cross, he said, surely you will be with me this day in paradise. And I would say to anybody right now that there is no sin that is unforgivable, that God cannot forgive. There's another one, it's called the blaspheming of the Holy Spirit, but I don't think you're going to do that. So God can forgive you. Whatever you've done, God can forgive. And then you have to learn to forgive yourself too.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. A lot of people carry a lot of burden, guilt, shame, self-condemnation. And then the thing about the devil loves to work on that. He loves to torment you. So he uses, like there's weapons in war, right? All kinds of weapons today. In spiritual warfare, there's all kinds of weapons too. And the devil loves to use what the Bible calls fiery darts. And these fiery darts are like, all of a sudden, where did I get that thought from? Like, how? Like, I never thought of that. Why? What? And then he'll use that. And then what we do is we drill it. We just keep drilling it, and we think about it. We overthink it. And then what happens? We start acting on it. Sometimes people, when they've been abused, when they've been hurt in their past, they walk through life without not forgiving their perpetrator. And you have to, because it's going to kill you, and it's going to create problems in your life. Forgiveness doesn't mean that somebody gets to do it again. No, it doesn't. But Jesus said, forgive as I have forgiven you. And so when you forgive somebody, you're actually getting that burden off of you too. And even though, what they did to you was horrible, what they did to you was evil, probably is, what they said, what they did, whatever it is. And you have to forgive, because there's actual literal effects of unforgiveness that actually hurts people's physical lives and their mental lives when they don't forgive. And so you got to forgive.
One of this great quotes I heard, I don't know where I heard it from, but they said, like, holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and hoping for the other person to die.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Get rid of that.
we live in a society where people are getting offended like crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know, right? I'm sure you experienced it a little bit on your
time.
podcast,
Yep.
right? And probably some people will be offended right now or already are offended. But you know what? We're always looking to be offended. If you're looking to be offended, you're going to be offended.
Like if you're looking for negativity, you're going to find
Exactly.
negativity.
Exactly. And so it's kind of like, I can't believe he said that. Or I can't, who's this guy? Oh, he don't even know what he's talking, whatever. But you know what? Then here's what I know. It's like, if you want to be offended, then go ahead and be offended. But offense is something that actually holds people back in their life. So let me give you an example. Can I give you another biblical example? Okay. So there was a time where, believe it or not, that Jesus could do no miracles in one town. Like, who can stop Jesus? Nobody can stop Jesus, right? Jesus can do anything that he wants. No. There was a town that he went to, and they were offended. They looked at him and said, isn't this Joseph's son? This is Mary's boy. And he's speaking like this, and he's teaching like this. And the Bible says that they were offended. And then the Bible says that Jesus could do no miracles in that town except to heal a couple of headaches. Because why? Because they were offended. And when you're offended, you actually hold back the blessing of God over your life when you keep that offense, when you keep it. And we shoulder other people's, he mad at you, so I'm mad at you now. You know what I mean? And we get so small-minded with that stuff. And so we're actually blocking a possible blessing that God could give to us.
I love that you brought that up. I think more people need to hear that message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so too. It's even in the church too. Yeah. Church is like filled with imperfect people. I'm one of those people in that, in the church.
Yeah.
And oftentimes people come up to me after I preach. I'm like, oh, please. I just want to go to the door and say goodbye and hi to everybody, because I got to make it from the stage and to the door. It's hard. Yeah. So people stop me. Yeah. Oh, you know what you should have said, or you know what you forgot to say. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah. I'm trying to be humble. I'm like, I understand. Yeah, I only get 35 minutes. I don't.
I know. I get that all the time. You should have brought up this stuff. You should have asked this. I'm like, okay, you want me to go back in time and do it? Or It's so funny. Yeah, people are funny. Yeah. Okay, this next question, I'm not going to say the username because it's kind of a personal thing, and I don't know if this person wants to be known.
Okay.
So let's just say R says, wife has doubts of marriage. She says God told her to divorce. God wouldn't, right? Enemy?
Well, first of all, the Bible actually says that God doesn't like divorce. He doesn't like it. He knows the after effects of what happens with that. And he wants to keep couples together as much as possible. Fight through your differences, forgive one another, grow, fall in love, stay in love, work at love, right? Ultimately, that's what God wants. I don't know the context of that question. I don't know the context. But I can tell you, would God speak to somebody to get a divorce? Doesn't sound like the character of God to me, from what I've read all these years. I can tell you, though, that there are instances where someone might have to leave for a little bit, because if there's abuse, there's verbal abuse, there's physical abuse, and for safety, they might have to be apart for a while, and with a purpose, though. Apart with a purpose. Apart just to stay apart because I'm angry, or I'm fearful, or it's controlling. That's when things can get wonky. Other people enter into the picture. You're getting advice from well-meaning friends that may not be productive. You leave room for the devil to separate you even more. That's when things get wonky. Another person could enter into the picture. Those kinds of times. And so I don't know the context. Are they both believers? If they are, then you got to work for it. big time. Is one a believer and the other's a believer? Hard to reason with an unbeliever if you're a believer, because you're really not in the same plane spiritually. And so I'm giving you the best answer I can, not knowing the context, but I feel for whoever that is, whatever they're going through, and I pray that you guys get help.
Yeah, mahalo.
Yeah.
Sending the best blessings to you, R.
Yeah.
Okay. These next questions, I know this is gonna be a long episode if you're cool with that, because
cool.
we still got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. This next question comes from past podcast guest Star Doll Thurston. She says, how would you encourage people to stay biblically rooted, especially with the election coming up? And then I also want to ask the same question because it kind of relates.
Yeah.
From Nis.Imamura, this person says, how do you navigate Christianity and politics? So if you want to kind of like combine those questions.
Yeah, those are great questions, because right now things can get polarizing, no doubt about it, right? Star, what is Star question?
It's how do you encourage people to stay biblically rooted, especially with the election coming up?
Okay. Okay, number one, we have an election because we have the opportunity to vote. Okay. Voting is a new thing. You look throughout all of history, nobody voted. We had kings, we had emperors, you had crazy people, right? Absolute power. And then these people decide, and they move to America for religious freedom. They end up creating their colonies, and then they decide that, wow, we're getting overtaxed, and this is crazy. Okay, I know just the other day was Indigenous Peoples Day, right? Okay, so I'm
a couple weeks ago when they're listening to this.
Right, a couple weeks. I'm going to stay in this lane, though, everybody. I'm staying in this lane, okay? Because we all got our feelings about how that went down there and here. But let's just go here. So now what you have is an opportunity and an experiment that's never worked before elsewhere, never had the opportunity to do this. And now we are actually voting, casting ballots for a president. Like, I don't think it's happened before this. If it has, please feel free to correct me. Okay? Was it successful? Are they still doing it? They probably are. They're probably doing it because, or every nation is doing it now, because of what first took place here in the 1700s in America, right? Okay, so now you vote. And now you have the opportunity to cast a ballot during election season coming up in a couple of days, right? Or just around right about this podcast. You have to vote. A no vote is a vote. And you may not like both candidates, but have you really looked at their policies? And you have to vote. So how do I stay biblically grounded? Well, I have a neighbor. She's got this sign out, and it's funny. And I don't think she'll be mad if I say, I don't even know if she watches this podcast. But her sign is red, white, and blue. It says, presidents come and go, but Wu-Tang is forever. I was like, Wu-Tang crew? I guess so. And here's the way that I look at it too. Presidents come and go. But you got to vote. But Jesus, God is forever. And so the way that I stay biblically grounded is I have to look at what's going on in the world. You have to be aware to a degree. Don't get stuck in it, but you got to read your Bible, because your Bible will give you peace. If presidential candidates are lobbying insults at one another and one of them is getting shot at, you know it's going to get crazy. So how do you stay grounded? Well, you don't, number one, the Bible says God has not given us a spirit of fear, right? That doesn't come from God. It comes from the enemy, Satan. He's given us power, love, and a sound mind. Power, love, and a sound mind. Okay? I love all three. I love spiritual power, right? Hawaiians would call that mana. Okay? I love Aloha. Sound mind, peace. That gives you peace. And to stay biblically grounded, you got to also understand that, to me, I think that you want to vote for what God loves and you don't want to vote for what God hates. Okay? But you got to vote at the end of the day. Exercise your opportunity to vote. If you want to change anything, you got to vote. So.
Awesome. Well, good thing this comes out right before election season, so maybe it'll motivate people.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, perfect timing. Yeah, and it's inconvenient though right now. Well, they made it convenient, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, so you can mail in your ballot.
Yeah.
I like to drive mine in.
Mm-hmm.
I like to drive it in.
Old school feeling.
Yeah, I wish we had it back in the day where you actually walked in and punched in.
I know, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
yeah,
Yeah, well, no vote, no grumble.
exactly.
Yeah, I only started voting in the last couple of years.
Well, I'm
And
glad you vote.
yeah, I mean, for me, like, the more national scale, I don't really think my vote actually matters. I mean, it's just by state. But on the local level, I totally want to try to impact that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. And then how do you navigate Christianity and politics?
You know what's interesting is people think that the church per se should stay out of politics. But the separation of church and state, that was done to keep the state out of the church, not the church out of the state. People always use that. Oh, separation of church and state. No. Our founding fathers started the country. They wanted to make sure that they didn't have the Church of England pretty much was a state-run church. It was run by the King of England. The King of England, the royalty oversaw the Church of England. And so when they came here to America on the East Coast and they started, right, that's not what they wanted. They didn't want a state-run church. So they wanted to keep the state out of the church, not the church out of the state. So navigating politics and faith, I think we have a God-given responsibility. When you look at, okay, Kamaka, me and you talking story, right? I only know of 2 nations on planet Earth that when they started their constitutions actually wanted God in their country. Israel and America. And I think America, for the last coming up on 248 years, has not been perfect. And we're not going to go there. And we could go there all day, right? On all the mistakes that America has made or whatever. But I can tell you the good that America's done. And so we need a strong America. So I think faith is important in our politics. I tell you what, for me, I would love to have a president that has a fear of God. I would like a president to have that. I used to say I like my presidents to have military experience. But that hasn't happened since Bill Clinton, right? I think Clinton never had any, Barack Obama didn't. Of course, Donald Trump didn't. I don't know if Biden did. Because I want you to know, if you're going to put sons and daughters in harm's way, that you were actually there at one time. So you can experience that before you make that call.
That's a good point.
That's why I would rather have a president that actually has gone to battle or worn a uniform. But I also think that I would want a president that has a respect and an honor for God, because then you realize that you don't wield absolute power. Absolute power belongs to God.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great answer.
Thank you.
This next question is, I think, the most interesting question of the day.
Okay.
This comes from Eisen Grace. This person says, as a Christian, I struggle to understand that according to the Bible, dinosaurs aren't real.
According to the Bible, dinosaurs aren't real.
I thought it was a funny question.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. The Bible never disputes that there aren't dinosaurs.
Yeah, I don't know where this comes from.
Yeah. I'm sure that there were dinosaurs.
Okay.
Guarantee. And some people believe that they were wiped out during the flood, the great flood of Noah's flood, during Noah's Ark. When you think about it, there was no rain yet during that time. Rain had never fallen on the earth. Everything was a greenhouse. It was a beautiful greenhouse effect. God had created that. And the water came from basically the springs. Okay? And so when God tells Noah to build a boat, there's no boat. He's going to have to build a huge one. And he does. And he creates and then God sends the rain. And that's when everything was wiped out on planet Earth. And the reason why he did it was he needed to start all over again, because the Bible says that humanity was so wicked that God said, I'm going to start again. And he does it. And he tells Noah, he's only found one man actually, during that time that was righteous. Everyone else was wicked.
Wow.
And so from one man, he has this family, and he puts the whole family and all of the animals 2 by 2, whatever God wanted to save, and he puts them in the boat, and he wiped them out. So probably that happened during the Great Flood.
Wow, that's crazy.
Very likely.
Do you think that's going to happen again?
No.
Oh.
No. And he sent us a rainbow. And he said that the rainbow was the promise, right? That's why believers, Christians, we believe that that rainbow that we see all the time is God's promise. He said, I'll never flood the earth again. I'll never flood it again.
That's why it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Cool. I didn't know that. That's awesome. All right. Well, first question was from your daughter. This last question comes from Johnny.Sweet. He says, who is your favorite son-in-law and why is it Elijah?
Oh, boy. These guys, I love them. I love my son-in-law, Jason.
More than Elijah, yeah.
I love him in different ways. Yeah. No, Jason is in Portland with Courtney, yeah, so they're afar. I don't get to see him a lot. But Jason holds a lot of interest that I have. And I'm super proud of him.
Awesome.
Super proud of him. And Elijah, he works closely with me. And he sees me more often. He sees me when I'm tired. He sees me when I'm happy. He sees me when I'm preaching. He sees me when I'm depleted. He sees me in meetings. So Becca and Elijah, they see more of me than all the other kids do. But I'm super proud of him too. Yeah, I wish he could sing though.
Oh yeah, you got to work on that a little bit. That's funny. Well, mahalo everybody for the social media fan questions. Make sure you leave some for our next guest, and maybe your question will make it on the podcast. All right, so I like to ask all of my guests the same question about keeping it aloha. It's the name of the show, and I want to know in your life, how do you keep it aloha?
Okay, how do I keep it aloha? Well, first of all, I was thinking the other day. I was thinking that I walk into every place thinking that, honestly, I love people and people love me. Not always the truth. I mean, not always happens.
But that's your mindset.
That's my mindset. My mindset is I'm not coming in here, walking into the store with any attitude or anything. I'm just walking in and believing that people are happy. Or I can maybe lift somebody up and have a good day, a better day. We live in a time where we're not saying hi to people very often. We walk by them, and people are more fearful of each other right now. And for me, good morning. Hey, how's it? Just saying hi.
Yeah.
And you know what? And sometimes you don't get the response that you want. Like, oh, how are you? Good. And they keep on walking. Oh, never asked me how I'm, but that's okay. You know what I mean? So I work hard to not be offended and not be offensive. And I realize sometimes I look a little intense. People say to me, you look kind of intense. Okay. All right. Maybe I got a Botox up here. I don't know. I don't Botox, but maybe I should on the forehead so I don't look as intense. But here's what I know. I love people. And I believe people love me. I believe people are good. I believe everybody just wants to be loved and respected. And even if I'm going to encounter you for only like 2 minutes, I want it to be a good experience. And the other part is I don't realize how recognizable I can be today. You know what I mean? People know my voice. They hear my voice or whatever. Like if they listen to me on the radio, like you got to be on, bro. You got to be good. You got to be good. It's a glass house that we live in sometimes. Like you live in a glass house, right? And people will notice you and they may not come up to you, but they'll notice you. And what they'll notice is, how do you treat other people?
Yeah.
And that glass house actually kind of keeps you safe. Even though people can see, it keeps you safe and it makes you the best person that you should be.
Yeah. I like to say that this holds me accountable. to keeping it aloha, because I have to be the best version of myself, because, people can see me, and people see me as the guy, the keep it aloha guy. So I have to be the number one guy keeping it aloha.
Yes, you do.
If I'm the one preaching and, promoting this, which, you could probably relate to, is having not so much pressure but responsibility, kuleana again, of holding yourself accountable to this at the highest standard, because you're a pastor, because you talk in front of a lot of people, because people see you, they hear your voice. So there's this responsibility that we have to uphold to be a good person, to treat others kindly, and all this all the good stuff.
Do you find yourself like carrying this pressure sometimes?
No, like I said, I that's why I didn't say pressure, because I don't see it as a pressure.
Okay.
I see it as it's a responsibility and a privilege.
Yeah.
Because I get to be in this position where people listen to me, and people are watching me, whether I like it or not.
Yeah.
So and I've mentioned it before, even like if we get heat on the podcast, or people don't like something that somebody says, or something that we're doing, it's I'm happy that it's happening to me, because I don't get offended, because I don't take things personally. I know that it's coming from them. It's something going on in their life.
Yeah.
So if it has to happen to anybody, I'm happy it's happening to me.
Wow.
Because I know I can handle it.
Yeah.
God
awesome.
gives his toughest warriors the toughest battles, right?
There you go.
Yeah. So that's how I see it. Is like, give it all to me. Give me the hard battles. I'll gladly accept it.
That's awesome. I love the way that you look at that.
Yeah, that's just how I was raised.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, great answer. I would like to dive into whatever knowledge you have about Hawaiians and Christianity, because there's such a contrast between the two religions. And I guess just belief systems. There's a lot of different theories of like pa'au and Io and all of that. My brother, he really got into that, and he always tells me the stories.
Yeah.
I've also had other people come on here before and talk a little bit about like the contradiction of being Hawaiian but Christian. But also when you look, you go into the history, it's actually not as much contradiction as you might think.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you could just educate us and share whatever knowledge you have about that.
I'll do the best that I can. Again, like, so I'm I respect like all of the people that have studied and who practice and believe what they have come to the conclusion of their belief in how everything happened in Hawaii. And I'm just going to share what I have discovered. And if it contradicts, I apologize, but it is what I know.
Yeah.
And so here's what I know. And here's what I learned. Years ago, I see that book over there, Perpetuated in Righteousness.
Oh, my dad gave me that book.
Yeah, great book, Perpetuated in Righteousness. I love Dr. Daniel Kikawa and his study. Years ago, when I grew up in Hawaii, right? I grew up more plantation Filipino side than I grew up the Hawaiian side. Although my family goes way back, all the way back to Ka'u, the Ka'u district. That's where both of my families, my dad's mom and dad's side, a lot of them were in the Ka'u district.
Yeah.
And so when we grew up, my grandfather was, half Hawaiian. He and my Bikai, my grandmother, she was half Hawaiian. And so my dad had Caucasian blood, Hawaiian. And we grew up pretty much more athletes and business than we did anything else. Dad, like, we didn't have enough Hawaiian for Hawaiian homes. I didn't go to Kamehameha schools. I knew one thing, and I knew that we lived in the most beautiful place on earth, and everybody wants to move here. Everybody loves you when they find out you're from Hawaii. Well, most people do, right? Because we carry something. We carry something different. It's not Hawaii 5.0 that promotes us, or Magnum PI, or anything, the tourism agency authority. No, we promote ourselves because of who we are. And whenever we go to a college on the mainland, or wherever we take over, like Las Vegas or the Pacific Northwest, what do we come with? We come with our aloha, right? We come with love. So when I realized when I came to Christ at the age of 21, that was easy for me because I wasn't brought up with, my amakua. I wasn't brought up with that. I know what it was, but I wasn't brought up with it. Wasn't brought up in a traditional Hawaiian upbringing. We were basically just, hapahauli mixed up all together. You got this side and that side and plantation. And so when that book, Perpetuated in Righteousness, came out, it was an aha moment for me to realize that God was already working in Hawaii before the missionaries even came here. Like if you look at it, the Bible says that in him we move and have our being. It says in Acts that God has already established where people would live and the times that they would live in. So if God already did that, and we're talking about Jesus 2,000 years ago, and we're talking about Hawaii being inhabited, I don't know from when, but when you look at Pa'au is 1300, brings in human sacrifice, right? And before that, there is a belief that there was a concept of a one true God, and his name was Io. Today, we could use the name Akua Manaloa, right? And so you have, or Akua. And, but if they want to get specific, the name was Io is what they believe. Okay, so I have other people that can prove that. I don't have time to prove it.
Yeah.
All I know is God was already moving. If you look at just the place, right? Look at the place. You look at how beautiful, in the middle of the Pacific, how God protects the islands from being discovered all of this time. And then in 1778, Captain Cook comes and he goes and navigates the South Pacific, Australia, New Zealand, and comes back to Hawaii. And then they kill him in Kealakekua. There's no Christianity yet, but at that time, right? They're bringing their ships and they're bringing their diseases with them. The population declines greatly in this period. In that period, while Kamehameha the Great, from what I've read and what I've been told, is trying to conquer and unite the islands, while he's on Oahu in 1807, another usurper, another chief, comes from the Hilo side, or in Ka'u, at that place. Then now you have a battle that's going on in Punalu'u. The battle at Punalu'u involves a family that comes out of the cave, possibly looking for water because it's super dry. And a warrior from the other side kills a husband, a wife, and the young boy picks up his baby brother, puts him on his back, and runs away. The warrior throws the spear and hits the baby brother, and the baby brother is instantly killed. And the warrior takes this young boy as his property. He is now, of course, brokenhearted. He's lost his whole family, tragically seen it before his own eyes. He is now he's being trafficked up to Kohala, the Kohala district where the warrior lives, and takes him. And he now becomes the property of this warrior. So this young boy, his name is Opukaha'ia. And Opukaha'ia is now, time has gone by, and he's growing. Can you just imagine the PTSD, right? Can you imagine just the sorrow that he's growing up with and how sad he must be at this point? And now he's got to work for this guy or live under this guy's thumb and rulership.
The guy who just killed his whole family.
Exactly.
Wow.
And I don't know, like you try to escape when he's trying to take you to Kohala. So I was told, and I read it too, that in this period, there was a makahiki. And during that makahiki, his uncle was a kahuna, high priest. His name is Pahua. And so he's serving under the great Heva Heva, the kahuna nui. And so he takes back he doesn't take him captive, pulls rank on the warrior and recognizes his nephew. Takes him, hanais him, brings him all the way down to that area of Kealakekua. I forget the name of the heiau, but he begins to train him. And so Opukaha'ia now is being trained to be a kahuna. So I would imagine genealogies, oli, mo'olelo, all these different things he's got to absorb, right? Like every Hawaiian had to, or most Hawaiians had to, especially the firstborn, If I'm not mistaken, you had to memorize the genealogy and pass it on. Could be wrong, but that's what I've...
Yeah, the Okuaho.
Okay. So now he's memorizing all this. What an incredible brain, right? Of course, we didn't have a written language at that time. We had oral. Everything was passed on orally. So you can imagine how this kid's brain is wired now. So in about 1807, after 1778, so in between that, the islands are being visited by different foreigners so that they can get resupplied, right? Some of them probably to scope us out, and the rest is to resupply on their way to China or on their way from China on their way to Massachusetts or Brazil or whatever, to drop off and trade. So this ship is called the Triumph. The Triumph pulls in with its captain, and the captain, the Bible, Opokahi'a, sees the ship, and from what I've been told from his relatives, that it was an immediate response when he saw the ship. He dove into the water and swam to it. So the church, Moku Aikawa in Kealakekua, up on the hill, is where that's the family's church. Pastor Kahu Bobby McCumber pastors that church. His daughter, Lena Alafruin, is fluent in Hawaiian. She teaches Hawaiian, and she also helped people with the podcast, which was the movie.
Wind and the Reckoning.
Yeah, The Wind and the Reckoning. By the way, if you guys haven't seen it, you got to go see it, man. The Wind and the Reckoning, you can get it online.
Yeah.
It stirred me, man, and I saw that movie.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. Did you watch it, the whole thing?
Yeah, I was invited to the premiere.
Oh, okay. I was there.
Lindsay. Oh, we probably at Ward.
Yeah.
Oh, I probably just...
We didn't know each other at that time.
Yeah, and then Lindsay Watson was on the podcast.
Yeah, she was.
Episodes ago.
Yeah. So, so he gets on the ship. He can't. The uncle says you can't go. So he puts him in the house, the hale. He breaks away again, swims to the ship. He and his friend, his younger friend, Hopu, they call him Thomas Hopu. They get on the ship. Finally, the captain settles it with the uncle that it's going to be okay. And so they take the ship, and the ship goes up to an island outside of Baja, California, where they get seal pelts. And they load it up, come back to Kealakekua again, get more supplies, go all the way to China, trade the seal pelts. Now they're getting China wear from China, and they're going to bring that back. And then finally he makes his way all the way to New York. And from New York, he gets disembarks. He disembarks in New York, but eventually goes to Connecticut. And so I just imagine that this early 1800s brown-skinned Hawaiian boy, is now in cold New England. Yeah. Cold New England. It's interesting, though, that there are already some Hawaiians up there. Kamuali'i, his father, was the king of Kauai, the chief of Kauai. He was there. Several, a young boy named Honoli'i was there. Hey. Yeah. And during that time, right, there was big slavery up there. And some of them believed that they were servants while they were there and trained, like in exchange for some education. So when Opokahi'a was there, he has no parents. He's lonely. And it says that he was found on the steps of Yale College, which is now known as Yale University. Yale College, just sad, like kind of crying on the stairs. And a young man named Edwin Dwight went up to him and says, "Why are you crying?" And he said, "Nobody learned me. Nobody learned me. Nobody's teaching me." He sees all of these young people walking by with books, and he doesn't have book knowledge. He doesn't know. He has the potential, but he doesn't have it. So what do? They actually he takes him under his wing, and through a series of different homestays, they put him in the equivalent of kind of like an elementary school. And he's older, but he's in a kind of an elementary school with other younger kids, and he's learning the alphabet. And he gets better and better. He reads now. and he's writing in English, okay? And then he moves up the ladder, and now he's in adult classes, and finally he's at university level courses. And he is such a quick learner because of his skill as a, memorization skills that he had. And so all of a sudden now he's moving up, and then by the time he's done, right around 18, 17, he's earned, he could speak Hawaiian and Hebrew because they sounded alike to him. Mm. He's got English. He can read Greek. And he can read Latin. Mm-hmm. 5 languages. And in the meantime, he is now giving his life to the Lord. He has seen the kapu. He has experienced what a kahuna is, right? And the system and all of that. And he comes to a knowledge of who Jesus Christ is, the fulfillment of everything that he's ever wondered about. And so he prays that his family and his people in Hawaii would come to know Iesu Cristo. Mm. And at this point, they don't, right? At this point, there is, it's more of what we were already practicing in the islands before anybody contacted us. And so he is praying. They rally around him. They love him. Now he is kind of moving into a more respected circle at that time. And so they decide that the American Board of Commissioners of Foreign Missionaries or Missions, ABCFM, mm-hmm. they decide that they had been going to places like Sri Lanka. They had been going to places like India and Africa. And for the first time decide that they're going to go to the South Pacific to the people of Opukaha'ia. We were called the Sandwich Islands at that time, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
How's that?
The
name was
nickname,
the
Sandwich Islands. Yeah.
We're, crazy.
Do you know why they named it the Sandwich Islands?
I do. Captain Cook named it after the Earl of Sandwich.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was.
In Great Britain.
Yeah. We learned that growing up. I forgot.
Yeah. I dubbed the Earl of Sandwich. You are called the Sandwich Islands. Yeah. Thank God we weren't called the burritos. You know what I'm talking about? The Sandwich Islands. And so I'm glad we're not called that anymore. Yeah. But then, so now you got this people who are interested in coming to Hawaii. Yeah, And so Opukaha'ia now begins to share his testimony. He's speaking good English. And they're raising funds for the mission. He writes his memoirs, and then they eventually put it into a book called The Memoirs of Obukaya. They don't know how to say Opukaha'ia. They go Obu with a B. Yeah. Obukaya. And so Obukaya's memoirs. But the sad part about this was he almost died once. And then he actually dies later. And in 1818, he dies of typhoid fever. Oh. As a matter of fact, the family went back. There was an anniversary to bring back 175 years of bring back Opukaia's body back. Wow. Beautiful grave. I've seen pictures of it. I have friends, other kahu that have gone. Kahu Kurt Kekuna, which is one of my favorite. He used to be at Kawaihao. Kahu Matt Higa from Kauai. They've gone over and been able to participate in the anniversary of Opuka'ia. And so they brought back his body before that, the family did. And Kahu Wendell Davis and his daughter and his family, when he was the pastor of Mokuaikawa, they told me the story that they actually had to put his body in the grave, but they could not tell which was the head and which was the foot because they wanted his head to face the sunrise. And when the sun came up, it was facing his face. Mm. And so they had to actually open the grave. They had to open the casket. I asked if I could share the story.
Yeah.
And they opened the casket. And they said they were amazed at how preserved his body was. His face. And it looked like his eyes were closed. His hair was still there.
Oh.
After that long.
Dang, it's crazy.
From 1817 to over 100 years.
They had some sort of preservatives in there.
Right. They put glass. There was a glass over his face. The glass. They it got, I guess, the cold New England
earth is
That's cold.
Probably what it was.
And
Like
so
refrigerator.
refrigerated, right?
Freezer.
Yeah. And so they found, they found the direction in which they could bury him. When Kahu Wendell Davis, they went up a couple of years ago to retrace the steps, see where he slept. The family, multi-generationally, still owns the house that Opokaia was living in. And he was like, they were nursing him back to health, but he just got worse and worse. And in that room, the family said that they were always fearful. They were afraid that the ghost of Opokaia would come back and haunt them for over 100 years. So nobody went in the room. And so Kahu Wendell Davis says, no, come. And he blesses the house, does a house blessing over the room. There's a portrait of him in the room, and told him, leave the door open. Don't close the door anymore. Mm-hmm. And they left the door open. And you know what they gave him? They gave him the key to the room. Mm. The key was like this big, rusted out. That was the key to Opukahai'a's room. They gave it to him as a gift. So this young man dies in 1818, but then the missionaries decide, we're going to go in the spirit of Opukahia. We're going. And so they come. Asa Thurston, Elisha Loomis, he was the printer. They bring a printing press with them, very, very important. They bring a printing press. And the doctor, there's several others, Asa Thurston, Hiram Bingham. Hiram Bingham had to get married right away because they didn't want him to fall in love with a beautiful Hawaiian girl and get off mission. So they made him get married fast. So he found a woman that was a Christian that wanted to go on this great adventure to the Sandwich Islands. And so I think they were shipped off. There were 12 companies of missionaries that came, 12 of them, from 1820 to 1848. And the first one, of course, you know, they landed. You can stop me at any time, ask me any question, but they landed at Kauai High. And when they landed, they learned that Kamehameha the Great has died. He died in 1819. They didn't know. They left on 1819 for about 150 days on the ocean, coming down under the Cape Horn, which is treacherous. And they end up in Kauai High. They get off, and they don't know that there is no kapu, that the kapu was not reinstated by Liho Liho and Ka'ahumanu and Heva Heva. Right?
Wow, so they just come in, there's like the world's so different.
They're so different. There's a void.
Yeah.
There's a void now. There's a spiritual void because, you know, they're not bringing back the kapu. Mm-hmm. And so they're not allowed to disembark in Kauai High. They're told to go to Kailua Kona. Meanwhile, a lot of people might know this, but already Heva Heva, the high priest, the Kahuna Nui, his right-hand man in that area, right, already had said to Kamehameha the Great, says that there's a black box prophecy, that God is coming in a black box. And yeah, so he's given a couple of prophecies. I would say he's taken a risk. Heva Heva's taken a risk by saying that, you know, there's another God coming. Because if you're my right-hand man, spiritual advisor, you know what I mean? I don't want nobody challenging my authority. And but Kamehameha the Great, incredible.
What did he believe in? Was it like old Hawaiian beliefs?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
And then so even though missionaries
that's what I've been told.
He still didn't. He wasn't like indoctrinated.
No, the Kamehameha the Great had already died by the time the missionaries came, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
That was when did the missionaries come?
The missionaries arrived in 1820.
Oh, 1820. Okay.
Yeah, Kamehameha
that was way later.
Died in 1819. Yeah, if I got that right.
A year later.
A year before.
A year before. Okay.
Yeah, he died a year before, and then the missionaries came.
Yeah.
He died right about that, you know, that time frame when. I don't know the exact date of Kamehameha the Great's death, but yeah, he definitely was gone already by the time the missionaries landed.
And then that's when they're like, okay, we can bring Christianity and.
Well, they were allowed to go to Kailua, and when they got off at Kailua Kona, they took out of the trunk a black box, which was actually the Bible.
Oh, that's what the black box.
Yeah.
Bible.
And so, if you look outside where the Kailua Kona Marriott is, or where they have the the triathlons. They call it Hawaii's Plymouth Rock, and this is where the missionaries first came and offered the Bible to Liho Liho, and he took the Bible. You know, it's interesting that Kailua Bay actually was called Kai Akeakua.
Oh,
Yeah.
when did it change?
I don't know, but I saw old maps, like 100-year-old maps.
Yeah.
That I unrolled. I actually had them printed of that bay, Kai Akeakua.
Cool.
Yeah. So they're allowed to get off, and I've been told that they were allowed to stay for a year, and we'll reevaluate after a year. Had them split up between Kona, Maui, and Oahu, I think. Those are the main places that they were split up because there's only 5 missionaries, 5 families, 5 couples. And so now they go to, of course, they're allowed to stay. The royalty, the ali'i, gave them places to live. Okay, you can have your church here. You can, Kahikolu, sorry, is the church. Kahikolu is the church that Opukahia was buried at.
Okay.
Sorry. Mokuaikawa is the first church.
Okay.
In Hawaii, and that was created right there in Kona. Okay, Mokuaikawa. So right over there, I'm telling you, it's amazing. They let them stay, and the first convert to Christianity was Keopuolani, which was Kamehameha's wife. Kahumanu was his wife too, but she was the regent. She was running things, and then Liho Liho, but Kauikeaoli, actually, incredible story. Kapihe was there, but he dies in stillbirth. And his name is Kauikeaoli, about from the dark cloud. He was brought out from the dark cloud. So he died stillborn. And Kapihe in Keohokona, there's a stone there commemorating that, heard the wailing, and the priest, prophet Kapihe, comes and washes him with water, Hawaiian water, salt water. And the boy comes back to life.
Oh.
Yeah. So he became Kamehameha III.
Oh, wow.
Kauikeaoli. And I love this stuff, bro.
Yeah, it's so interesting.
It's really interesting. Meanwhile, Kamehameha II, Liho Liho, goes to England and is on his own royal ship. And he gets to England and he wants an audience with the king. And while he and his wife are waiting to meet with the king, they get measles. And they both end up dying in England. And so Kauikeaoli now has to ascend to the throne at a very, very young age. And so now what you have is you have Christianity being brought into the islands. There's a void. They're allowed to stay by the ali'i. They're given opportunities to do that. And they go to work. And what they go to work immediately, they go to work in helping us get our language printed. So you can imagine what that must have been like. I mean, you already have Opukahia at that time. I'm sure they did love him. They valued him. They had Hopu. He came back. He served in the church in Mokuaikawa in Kona. They must have incredible stories to tell of what their experience was like, what they might have been treated like in New England. And they come back. And so now you have the printing press, and you're taking oral language of people, and you're like but they're taking it. It's incredible because now they've got to put this on paper,
just from memory.
Now they're translating Hebrew into their language. Well, forget the Bible right now, but right now they're putting their words on paper for the first time with the printing press. It was said that Elisha Loomis worked so long, that he burned out from being the printer and went back to the mainland.
Yeah.
So the printing press, like he's putting their own, what do you say, paper? Pala pala?
Pala pala is like a document, or a pepa. It's paper, yeah.
For the first time, spelling books. And one of the gifts that they gave to our people is a written language. And then eventually schools to be able to read in Hawaiian, not in English. Eventually English, Hawaiian first. So they give us our language on paper, and all of a sudden everything that's been memorized is on paper. Not everything, but a lot is on paper now for the first time. I heard stories that the reason why we could read upside down, because there wasn't a lot of books yet, or a lot of spelling books, so you'd have to turn it around, and you're sitting on that part of the circle, you're sitting on that part of the circle, you can read upside down, you can read sideways. And so now all of a sudden, I don't know if you knew this, but we became per capita the most literate people on planet Earth.
In Hawaiian, not English.
In Hawaiian.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a gift. That's a gift. And so now when you print up, eventually more people can read. This is taking a long time. And so they teach them, they give them their Bible now, Baibala, in Hawaiian. And they're reading it. It's amazing. And they spread out. They start churches. There's a book called The World's Top 10 Revivals by a scholar named Elmer Towns. And I picked that book up and I read it. And in the top 10 since Pentecost, when is Pentecost? Okay, since Jesus, okay? 2,000 years, the top 10. And he ranks Hawai'i like in the top 7. And what happened in the kingdom of Hawaii, they call it a great awakening, not a revival. Revival is when something's dead, comes back to life, it's revived. And for Hawaii, it was an awakening. And I believe that it was God's plan all along for the people to come to know him, to know who he is, Jesus. Forget the Puritan Christianity. Forget all the rules and all of that. At the end of the day, I believe it was God's plan. He created the islands. He was named somewhat after Ha, right? Vai, E, maybe E-O. Ha, breath, Vai, fresh water, E-O. If you're going to go with the name E-O after Yahweh, I mean, sounds so coincidental.
Yeah, yeah.
When God creates,
Hawaiianized.
right? When God creates the first human being, the first honi, out of clay, Ha, breath of life blown into him. I don't know, it's just so coincidental that it happens to be the most beautiful place on planet Earth, the most beautiful people, so many things that connect. And so I believe it was God's plan to use Opukaha'ia, even though it's a tragedy, that he never made it back and how he died and he went through all that pain as a young boy. But God often takes the broken pieces of our life, and I like to say he makes masterpieces out of our lives. And he did that for Opukaha'ia. And then he did that eventually by sending the missionaries to come.
That's so cool. And they got the church, in Keokaha, I think Henry Opukaha'ia Church.
Yeah?
Yeah. They all sell good Hawaiian food, I think.
Yeah. Henry O.
Yeah, Henry O.
There's a school, right, called Henry O.
Yeah.
I bet plenty of people went, why do they call him Henry O? Okay. But you know, when I looked at how Christianity, the faith in God, faith in Jesus spread greatly here. It took years, but finally they got here in 1820, Kamaka, but it didn't really take off till like 1832, 1834, 1836, and right at that time frame. And have you ever heard of Dr. Ron Williams, University of Hawaii?
I don't think so.
That guy's amazing. He is, 2 years ago, I watched these teachings by the UCC church, which is Old Hawaiian Church, right? UCC denomination. And they'd bring on Keanu Sai, who's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the guys that they brought on was Ron Williams. And how Ron Williams spoke and shared for about two Sundays in a row, for like an hour and a half or 3 Sundays in a row, basically absolving the missionaries from coming to Hawaii to take the land.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. This is a professor that I believe was taught under one of the Trasks, if I'm not mistaken. And I was glued to it every time. Wow, fascinating. And he said, no, it was not the missionaries. It was the missionaries were done with their mission by 1848, done with the mission. No more missionaries are being sent. It was the next generation and the businessmen that were already coming to Hawaii were the ones that were part of the overthrow.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I misspoke, by the way, about Henry Opukaya being a church. It's a school. And Kauhane Hemolele sells the good Hawaiian food. That's what it was. I
Okay.
think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just if anybody's
Yeah.
check
I was
that.
yeah. I was thinking like Henry O is right above the McDonald's, right?
I think so, yeah. The old, it should be the old Henry O.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so when I look at some there were, I mean, how could our people just gravitate?
Mm-hmm.
They gravitated. They the biggest churches in the world at one time were in the islands. And these people, our people, were hungry. They were getting to know him. It was astonishing where 96% of the people would consider themselves Christian at that time, at one time.
What else was the religion?
Well, eventually Catholicism came.
Okay.
Yep. But because there was they were not following anymore the religion of, well, the Ali'i got saved. Most of the Ali'i gave their lives to the Lord.
Mm-hmm. So is Hawaiian Christianity a real thing, or is this Christianity? Or is it contradictory to be Hawaiian and Christian?
I don't think it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's contradictory to be either Hawaiian or a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
Yeah, because then in the Hawaiian beliefs, there's multiple gods, right? In Christianity, you believe in one true God.
One God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So is there like somebody who was like raised as a Hawaiian, believing all these things, but they also believe in God and Christianity? Is there like a push and pull going on over there?
There's got to be a push and pull going on in people, because there is when Heva have he's the one that tore down the idols, right? When the kapu was broken and it was never reinstated, that's got to make you think for a moment. When Heva died and they buried him in Waimea Valley, I mean, before he died, I read he asked for prayer.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted prayer, and so you're no longer following. Most people are no longer following, the old gods that they once followed, because they believe that they found a true Savior. That's the quotes that I'm reading. They believe that they found a true Savior in Jesus Christ, Jesu Cristo. And so they went there. I'm sure you could still practice it. I don't know how safe it was to practice. I don't know if it was frowned upon anymore. I'm not sure. But it's a hard leap for people, for
Totally.
some.
Yeah.
And I can understand. And so, yeah.
One day I'll have like some sort of like expert of all this to go dive deeper.
Yeah,
into
go
that
ask
too.
them. I'm not an expert.
Yeah. No, mahalo for sharing that.
Yeah.
It's an interesting story, and I didn't know that whole story of Opukahaya.
Yeah.
I've heard the name multiple times, and I know it's a big figure in Hawaiian history, but I didn't know that whole story from his childhood until passing away.
Well, at one of the early churches was at Kahikolu, and Chiefess Kapiolani was a member of that church, and she's the one that walked all the way to Kilauea crater to
crazy.
defy Pele. Yeah, that was powerful.
Awesome.
That was a big moment.
Yeah, and
so there were churches that were started. I want to highlight a couple of people that were instrumental. Like, come on, okay, so highly congregational church. You know what highly is, right? You're from Hilo.
Yeah, that's what my parents go. My stepdad and mom go there.
They go to highly congregational church.
Yeah, in Hilo, above Stock and Save under McDonald's.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm a descendant of David Lyman is one, okay, but also my Kai family all the way back Hilo, Ka'u. Oh. So when we took this tour, we went around this tour of the different significant sites of Christianity on Hawaii Island. So we went to Kona, went to Keauhou, we went to all these different spots. Crazy. places. And then we ended up in Hilo, of course, because you got to go to Hilo. And one of the greatest revivals ever took place in Hilo Village. Like, not Hilo Town, Hilo Village. Hilo Village, where the first missionary showed up in 1822. His name was Goodrich. And after that, another guy. And then after that was David Lyman. Okay. And then after David Lyman, the church that wasn't that big, but there was a guy named Titus Cone. Titus and his wife came all the way from England. They came from the East Coast and Pennsylvania, and so they were sent on that missionary journey. In 1836, they arrive in Hilo, and when they get to Hilo, story was told that Hiram Bingham, he was the main guy at Kauai Ha'o, that he loved Titus, but Titus was such a great speaker that he kind of wanted to get, you got to go Hilo. You got to stay away from me, go Hilo. So he sends him to Hilo, and Titus learned how to preach in Hawaiian in 3 months.
Wow.
In 3 months. Good enough to preach in Hawaiian in 3 months. David Lyman didn't do that. He did that.
Yeah.
And he preaches, and he was so good, and the power of God was so strong in Hilo that it populated the village of Hilo even more, that people would travel 10, 30 miles just to come to church. And they decided that they would live in Hilo. And so Hilo populated like crazy. The church grew. It was just such an incredible time of an outpouring of God's love upon his people that the church grew to over 10,000 in membership.
Whoa.
10,000.
That's like the whole population of Hilo.
Right. It swelled. So Hilo grew because of that. And so when you think about that for a moment, to do church membership back then, it's hard, to be, you want to be a member? Okay, let me see if you pass. 10,000 members. His district was 60 miles long. He would have to walk. No horse, walk. He would walk Puna. Puna was his district. And he was doing a great work there. He dies in Hilo. He gives his life for the Hawaiian people, the gospel in Hilo. There's another guy, and his name is, right now, Lorenzo Lyons, Makua Liana.
Okay.
This guy was in Waimea, and his church was called Imiola. I don't know if you can see this on the inside.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, this book was written in 1934, and I bought it, and this is what he looked like when he was a young man.
Wow.
And he comes here in 1832, Lorenzo, with his wife Betsy. And they go to Waimea, and Waimea was cold. 1945, it was written this book was 1945. And Waimea his granddaughter wrote it. She took his journal, his memoirs, and created a book out of it.
That's so cool.
And so she told the story about how his district was so large. I would read the book. Like, this guy went from, the thing about Waimea, his district was as far as Honoka'a. And you had to walk.
Yeah.
And there was no roads. It was boggy, especially going through, coming through Waimea, Waipio Valley, Waimanu Valley, Kohala, Hawi, Kauai High, Puako, Waimea. That he had the largest district out of all the missionaries, and he would walk it. And this guy, his body wore down. The sad part was his wife Betsy died. They went to Honolulu at Kauai Ha'o to go to a conference, and while they're there, she gets sick on day 1. Day 2, she's in the equivalent of a hospital at that time. By day 4, she's dead.
Dang.
Like that. And he already has one child, I think 1 or 2 children from her. And he goes back to Waimea after, I think, 2 months. And he goes back probably like 1835 with a heavy heart, brokenhearted. And I read, I am lost. He writes, I am lost without her. And it's pretty sad. But, he knows his mission, no matter what the adversity, no matter what the setback. So he ends up remarrying about 2 years later, walks his district, loves people, shares the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ all over. As a matter of fact, He'd write stories about like lying down, getting flea bitten in Waipio Valley, cannot sleep. It talks about not being welcomed in certain areas. Talks about starting a church, small congregation in Waimanu Valley, which I walked to a couple years ago.
That's
Brutal.
crazy. Very brutal.
Walked it all the way in, and I took this book with me. You know, you cannot carry plenty stuff. You know, when you're walking for 7 hours straight, you know, through all these gulches.
Yeah.
You have to pack light. They told me pack light, and I brought this book, and this is not light. And I read an excerpt from this book to my brothers, my friends. There are 4 of us that went in and read what he had to say about Waimanu Valley. It was unbelievable.
What a cool experience, yeah.
Chicken skin.
Totally, chicken skin. You talk about Opukaia having a great memory. You have a great memory, being able to recall these stories. And I'm so bad at like listening to something and regurgitating it. I'm just like, I remember it, and I remember like, oh, it feels good or bad, or like some little bits and pieces of it. But
it's probably
your storytelling is unreal.
It's probably because this is like my passion. This is my area. Like I want to get good at it. I want to know more. Like I was telling you, my wheelhouse, if I have one, on this time in history in Hawaii, 1807 to 1836, 37, right about there. Yeah. I mean, when I look at that, I look at to me, Lorenzo Lyons, Makua Laiana, Imiola Church in Waimea. There were like easy 3,000 people coming to his church. 3,000. He loved the people so much. He actually became like the lyric poet of Hawaii. And he wrote songs. You know Hawai'i, Aloha?
Mm-hmm. That's him?
He wrote that.
Oh, wow.
You know where that song came from? I'll tell you. It's a song called "I Left It All." I left it all to Jesus.
So
it's a Christian hymn.
Yeah.
And then he took it and put the words to Hawai'i Aloha in it.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so
yeah, we do. It's just cool hearing the foundation of like all these things and the origins.
When he died, King Kalakaua sent a Hawaiian flag to wrap his body in before he was buried. That's how much he was loved and respected. He said he wrote that he wore his body out for the Hawaiian people. When you look at the cliffs, he had the cliffs just to get, like I was whining coming down the switchbacks of Waimanu Valley, and this guy did it on the regular to go reach people. Yeah, this is it's a great time. But what I love is not just what God did before. I love what God's doing now, what he's about, what he's going to do in the future.
Nice.
Yeah.
What do you think that is? So what do you think is the future? Well, do you think is the future that God has planned for us in Hawaii and for you for the next 5, 10, 20 years?
I think there's going to be another kind of great awakening or great revival in Hawaii. I believe it's going to happen. And it's going to be better than the first one. We've already had multiple revivals, not just, the big Hawaiian one and, back in the 1830s and the 1840s. And then, the businessman came here with Manifest Destiny and kind of blew it all, no, there were still, God was still working. Our queen, Liliuokalani, a strong believer. She loved the Lord. And even after that, there were moves of God that God did. When you look at what God did with New Hope and Pastor Wayne Cordero when he was in Hilo, right? 1983, he goes to Hilo. About a decade later, comes to Oahu. And my goodness, his church, easy 10,000 at that time. And not only his church, though. There was like the Hope Chapels. There was the Calvary Chapels, the different churches, the Grace Bible. God was already doing stuff. He's still doing stuff. He's never stopped. In fact, he was already working even before the missionaries got here. Not like the missionaries got here and now all of a sudden God's like, okay, I'm interested in Hawaii. No, he was already interested. He already created it. Yeah. He already created it. And so when he creates it, he wants it to thrive. Like revival. To me, revival is not just how many people come to church. I think agriculturally, the word tells us that even your crops, your lo'i should be abundance. There's abundance that goes along with that, not scarcity. So how do I experience a revival personally. Somebody once said, you want revival, draw a circle right around your feet, one big circle, stand in it, and let God revive you first before you revive anybody else. You know, kind of like, you know, become a better person. Like, you become the best, right? With God.
Make sure your cup is full.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I really see God's going to do something. He hasn't forsaken us. He hasn't forgotten us. By no means. By no means. No matter who you are, where you come from, whatever's going on in your life, God still loves you. And he's always calling, always calling.
So what does your next years look like?
My next years look like I'm going to keep doing this.
Yeah.
I feel like I could do this into my 70s. I feel like I'm not leaving Hawaii.
Yeah.
You know, I'm here.
Keep taking those vacations though.
Yeah.
Don't burn yourself out.
Yeah. Well, I try to get back to Hawaii Island, Big Island, as often as I can, because that's where I totally exhale.
Yeah, same. It's a great escape from all of this.
What's your favorite island then?
I mean, I always gotta say the Big Island because that's where I'm from. That's where my family is. That's where my heart is. I like living here. I'll probably live here for the rest of my life, but I always have Big Island as like a safe haven that I can always go back. And I like it like that.
Yeah.
Because I can get all my work done here, then I can go back and just like relax.
Me too.
Disconnect. Yeah.
Me too.
What is something you wish people knew about you that they don't? Or something you think they misunderstand about you?
I would say that I want them to know that that I am more proud of my family than I am of what I've built or what I'm building in partnership. I would say that, like, at the end of the day, man, I'm a girl dad, bro. I wish I had sons, but I don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm glad I got girls. I wouldn't mind having a son.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't want 3 daughters. I'd exchange them for 3
You got
sons.
son-in-laws.
Yeah, I got son-in-laws, but I I don't have any sons. I wonder what a young Michael Kai would look like, act like, be like, what he would like. But you know, I don't dwell on it very often. But I love my daughters. They're all amazing. I have got an incredible wife. I would say that, you know, you look at Mike, then, you know, there's not too far behind this, right there. Lisa is right next to her.
Equally as awesome.
Equally as awesome. And some say smarter and better looking for sure. So I married up. I definitely married up. I didn't think I did at the time. We equal. Years go by. No. I definitely married up, man. Saved me from a lot of stuff, like catches blind spots, leads like crazy. Very, very smart. I would say that I love basketball. I love my daughters. I would say that. Well, I don't think people know, but I like solitude. I like solitude. Like, not all the time. I can't get solitude all the time, but I know who doesn't, right? Right? Everybody, all the moms out there. I would love some solitude, no doubt, right? I would love some solitude, but I like being alone. Some people, like, I recharge
By being alone. Yeah.
by being alone.
As do I.
Yeah.
Cool. So before we end the podcast and come to the end, I gotta know, what is your life hack?
My life hack.
Were you able to think of one?
I was, bro. I was digging deep, man, and I was like, that one sounds a little bit too spiritual, bro. Oh no, I honestly, my life hack is okay. Yeah. I tried cold plunge. Yeah. Years ago, I bought one sauna. Yeah, I tried drink a little bit Himalayan salt in my water. Yeah, lately I've been doing a tablespoon of olive oil and then squeeze half a lemon in water, and then I don't eat till 1 o'clock. Yeah, doing all that. It's not working as well as I wanted to, but I'm doing all that. My number one life hack has got to be prayer. Pray. Just, pray for my family. Pray that I get better. Pray that my heart is clean. Pray for Hawaii. I pray for my church, my people, the people that go to our church. I'm so honored that they come. I can't believe it. I pray. I pray for sometimes my enemies, that they become frenemies. I pray. Number one, if I don't pray, it's like taking a fish out of water for a Christian, especially for a pastor.
Yeah. It's like breathing.
Yeah, if I don't if I don't pray and I don't read my Bible, I have nothing to say. And there are times I go 2 days without doing my devotion. Sorry, 2 days I got busy 2 days. Oh my gosh, and I got to play catch up.
Yeah.
Because I have one of those chronological daily Bibles that I like to use. But again, I go back. That's my hack. Like, yeah. I saw Justin, told me Justin puts the clips on the...
Yeah, the hanger on the hotel rooms.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally. I would bring potato chip clips.
Oh, smart.
And blue painter's tape.
Oh, well, that's getting intense.
That's getting intense because sometimes, man, that sunlight comes through the curtains and you're not getting the sleep that you really want. And then I do if I'm on a trip and I can wear the eye shades, I'll wear the eye shades, the earplug, and the mouthpiece too, so I don't snore.
Oh, everything. Wow. I'm sure Lisa appreciates that too.
Yeah, I said, will you stop snoring, please? Snoring is killing me.
That's funny. Well, we have a million things that we could talk to. We didn't even we only reached the surface of a lot of things that you do. We didn't get into the podcasting, the Inspire Collective, all the other awesome things that you are doing. So if people want to, learn more, just make sure you're following this guy. I want to get into my last fast Fave 5 questions. These are just rapid fire answers, okay?
Okay.
Favorite worship song?
I forget the name of the song. I know what it is though.
Sing it.
Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything else is shaken. Yeah.
Oh, Lauren Daigo sings.
I think Lauren Daigo. Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand. You know what I love about that song? Rain came, wind blew, my house was built on you. Oh my gosh, that rocks me every time. Rain came, wind blew, my house was built on you. And that song, when I first heard it, my dad was passing away, was dying, and that's when I lost it. I lost it in the front row at church. I couldn't preach, but I had to go up and preach. But that song, that's still my favorite.
That's cool. Yeah. The
Firm Foundation.
Firm Foundation?
Firm Foundation.
That's the name of it?
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking of it because Lauren Daigo has this one, The Rock on Which I Stand. She has a lyric of that song. So I'm trying to think what song that is.
I love Lauren Daigo.
Yeah. Same. I found her in my third year in Madagascar in the Peace Corps on accident. I was just listening. I was on YouTube because I finally got internet because I was in a hotel for a couple of days. And then I was just on YouTube just looking for new people, and I just kept I heard her once and I kept listening to it, and it wasn't until I don't know, a couple of days later I'm just sounds like she's singing about God.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize it was worship music.
She's a great crossover artist. She can do both.
She's
That's
awesome. Yeah. Okay, favorite guilty pleasure?
Bro, I just did it yesterday. Baked manapua.
Oh, from where? Changhua Cam.
I was at a Chinese restaurant. I forget the name of it. Right there in Honolulu, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not eating bread, not having noodles, and then I was like, you know what? I'll just take one." They don't give you one; they give you 3.
So you had to eat 3.
So I ate one yesterday. I'm probably gonna have one today, and then anyway, yeah.
That's funny. That's a good one. Favorite travel destination?
Outside of Big Island, Japan.
Japan. Everybody loves Japan. It's a great. What's your favorite thing about Japan?
Food.
Oh yeah.
The cleanliness.
Yeah.
And the food. Best breakfast buffets at the hotels. I love it. We're going back.
Awesome. Yeah, I gotta go. I gotta go back next year. Okay, favorite post church food.
Oh, dude, I get this Korean food from Wahiwa. That they always give. I usually get the fish jun and the kalbi, and then and then I'll knock out after that.
Yeah. The Kanak attack, post church food, and then Kanak attack.
Yep.
That's the combo.
Yep.
Okay, and I wrote down favorite book. But I also want, so you can share your favorite book, but I also want to know what your favorite like proverb, like scripture, like. Yeah. My dad. So growing up, you love this. My dad would always make us memorize verses, Bible verses.
Yeah.
In Hawaiian.
Yeah.
So every time he calls us, he always asks us for a Bible verse.
Oh.
Yeah. So we also have to repeat it back to him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so it's my favorite verse.
Yeah.
Okay. I love Romans 8:28. For God works all things for the good of those who love him and called according to his purpose. So Romans 8:28 is what we use whenever things don't go the way that you thought they would go, right? God works out all things. God works out all things. But I love it when God takes a Romans 8:28 and turns it into an Ephesians 3:20. For God is able to do exceedingly abundantly more you can ever ask, think, or even imagine. In other words, when things are not going well, God's plan is always in play, and then he can blow your mind with the results that he can show you. That's what I love. When he takes a Romans 8:28 and he turns it into an Ephesians 3:20.
Only he could do that.
Only him.
That's awesome. All right. Well, that's all we have for you today. I just want to say mahalo for coming in and talking stories, sharing all your mana'o with us. I wish we could talk for 3 more hours, but we'll go grab lunch and we'll just talk.
Let's go eat lunch. We talk story at lunch.
Yeah.
Come on, thank you.
You wanna say before we wrap up?
Thank you so much. You've created one of the best podcasts that I've ever heard. You have some of the most interesting guests, and I have learned from every single one that I've listened to. I was telling somebody, so what's the Keep It Aloha podcast? Somebody was asking me. I said, you got to watch them, bro. You get actors, actresses, athletes, activists. You get all kinds. You know what I mean? It's amazing what the kind of people that you bring together to kind of be like a town square or town hall to be able to share from this platform. So God bless you, man. Thank you.
Mahalo. So where can we find you?
MikeKai.tv, Instagram, Be Nice, YouTube, my YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna close this out, but before that, can you just do a little prayer for that my dad asked?
Yeah. Father, I thank you for this Keep It Aloha podcast. I thank you for Kamaka Diaz. I thank you for all that the weight and responsibility that he carries. I thank you, Lord, that he's able to be able to move on from anything that he goes through, water off a duck's back. And I thank you, Lord, that he doesn't let it get into his spirit. I thank you, Lord, that he's able to protect his heart and mind. And I pray that you bless this podcast 10 times over, that so many people would find him, would know about him, and would be able to follow this podcast. And I just want to ask your blessing would be upon him, and faith and all that is on his heart. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Well, mahalo, Pastor Mike, for joining us on the Keep It Aloha podcast. Spread love, be kind to one another, and mahalo for listening to us today. We have new episodes every Thursday, so make sure you follow us and leave a review. I'm your host, Kamaka. Remember to always keep it aloha.